Okay, here we are in the bottom half of, I guess, the third quarter of the fourth deck of the game. And what's happening so far, let's look country by country. Austria poised to go to war with Turkey. They're playing a dangerous game here in terms of timing and whatnot, but that's often the case in this game. They have a lot of cubes available. They haven't used much. Remember, they can shift a couple more into the military if they need to. But they very much do want to go to war with Turkey because Turkey's in a lot of trouble. Poland just sort of bumbling along. Now, there's an interesting situation in play that I mentioned, which is this revolutionary ideologies. Revolution ideologies. Is this the one? That is relatively non-damaging to whoever plays it, whereas these two cards are both damaging. There's one more card, perhaps it's an okay one, but someone is going to be forced to take a bad card. So far, only France caught on to that, and they grabbed a kind of neutral card that they played. But the remaining players, England, Austria, and Poland, are all kind of blissfully ignorant of what's going to happen to them so far. I've been rolling a die to make that decision. Turkey itself, they just absorbed all of the Egyptian territories that had been a vassal state actually into them. That's going to cause problems because they're no longer a Muslim nation. They're a revolutionary nation. And they have some serious issues. They also have an army here. They've got to get rid of some of this unrest. This is, a rebel army that's going to cause issues. It's going to spread into their other areas if they don't do something about it. However, they've got kind of a, gosh, what do we do? They could pass, if Austria doesn't declare war first, they could pass before Austria declares war and kind of force Austria to figure out other things to do with all their military cubes that they have there. Wow, they have a shitload. France has just succeeded in conquering, well, no, they have not. They've defeated the army in Benin. They have to still siege it to take it over. They're almost out of things. And what the hell? This is a little one. Don't know what's going on there. Their nation is actually in pretty good shape. Protestant. All their territory is Protestant. They don't have unrest anywhere. They're doing pretty damn well in terms of their situation on the board. In terms of victory points, they're way behind. Spain is a mess. They're trying to take care of the rebellions and whatnot. They don't have a lot of cubes. Remember that whole issue of not enough fat to manage, being at war, doing things, and keeping your country relatively stable. England also has some revolts. They probably can handle it. They don't have a lot left to do. That works us around the table. I've had a lot of issues come up where it's hard for me to reconcile the way the game operates with what actually should be happening historically. However you want to look at that. England's got a colonization. So does Turkey, but Turkey's doesn't count. But England's got a colonization that they could drop, not there, but over in Guyana. They've lost the American colonies. Spain has a situation where the Americas are claiming one of their things, but they're allied with them. So it's kind of a weird situation where there's just so much that operates oddly in this game. I've pointed out a few of the things in the last video. But one here, you know, I spoke some words to this, but the Americas basically were allowed to secede from the English without the English having any reaction, without them getting a claim, without anything happening, and through an event card that someone else played. There's just so many things in this game that just feel like they're not really capturing the right atmosphere. Now, you get a story out of it. There's no question of that. You got a nice map that shows you what's going on. You know, that always helps bring the story out. But some of the gaming mechanisms that neither reflect the original EU nor the later versions of the computer game, as far as I can tell. Things that are really composed out of the Eurification of the system. Just, they don't really seem to work to me. Now, I've cheated to make some of these things work the way I think they should. So, for example, the religious aspects, those are supposed to be countermix limited. That would be a gamey function that just disturbs me too much. Kind of want to do more and, you know, reverse more of these Euro style aspects to the design. But I don't know, you know, there's a limit to how much I can do. And there's also the question of, does that just throw the game into, you know, chaos? But some of the matters are just so distasteful that it's really hard to cope with. Close my window because there's a damn wedding party out there. Not too noisy, but any shouting and everything just gets me cranky. Austria made their roll. They've decided they are worried about this and will take the event. So that is going to place a fist. Insane. I'll bring this square back here. I had gotten one free for something. I think this is sane. I can't see. Yeah. We put that on top of the Protestant. So here's where the countermix matters. If you're, like, normally I thought it didn't matter at all. If you lift that off to use it somewhere else, that area is still Protestant. Okay. Louis XVI can only become king if Louis XV, well, no, we have, we have Catherine. Now I get to choose how to screw the French. France can research revolutionary realm or constitutional monarchy for free. That doesn't really screw them. Seize them. France gains 2 victory points, 2 military, and 4 unrest, and loses a stability. Well, gosh. I'm not really worried about giving them some victory points. I am the Austrians. However, I might be worried about giving them a couple more cubes. Remember, they did that whole, we're declaring war on Spain, and then rewound it. There's nothing that stops them from still declaring war on Spain, right? And if I give them too many cubes and I'm at war with Turkey, that might be of value. Of course, giving them a bunch of unrest, they'll probably pay for it with that. But let's take a look at, first of all, they could go revolutionary. Doesn't seem like a valuable option, but the spread could be problematic if I don't know. I have a development, so I can change the religion. The French can change the religion of the Seine area. But we don't know what constitutional monarchy does, so let's take a look at that. Where is it? I don't know. My guess is administrative. but I'm not positive. Nope. Is it already out? Nope, there it is. Okay. Constitutional monarchy. What is that going to do? At the start of phase 3, yeah, correct. Maybe we'll remember. Gain a diplomacy if you're at peace, that's likely. Gain a stability as well if everyone adjacent to you is at peace. Chances are, no. People are going to be at peace after stage 3, but people probably aren't going to be at peace during stage 3, especially this late in the game. There's a lot going on. So that's not too big. And you can pay a bunch of diplomacy to gain a stability. How do I feel about this? I think that's what I want to hit the French with. I want to give them an incentive to be at peace. So I'm going to pick the abolish feudalism. So France could either become revolutionary or a constitutional monarch. Now, we have already looked at revolutionary and seen the advantages and disadvantages. They would give, well, we wouldn't be researching it. It just says gain, right? Does it say research? Again, this is why these videos are so long, because I got to look up so much. It says research. Okay. So, yeah. So we would be giving Spain and Turkey. We definitely don't want revolutionary. But we do want constitutional. It's an advantage. It's worth points. It's the last type of government. So we put a little marker on it. France gets 2 victory points for that. They would get 2 from the other option. And they get an instant effect of 3 diplomacy to gain one of these, which seems like a pretty good deal. Where do I put this one? Over here, I guess. And that is the Austrian event. And now we walk around some more. No Louis XVI. Obviously. Okay. The Governance Act. Okay, this gives Stanislaw Augustus abolish the liberum veto. Poland gains any 3 cubes, may research constitutional monarchy, but loses a stability. Add 4 unrest to Polish towns. All opponents adjacent to Poland gain a claim to a Polish area. That will just be Turkey and Austria. The option opposed to that is maintain the old. Poland loses 2 military and 3 victory points, but gains a stability, and the player who plays this, who will probably be Poland, they want to choose, they want to control it. They've got an event open to them. You gain a stability and you gain a peace, and I would get a new leader who is better than whoever I have, whatever butthead that is. I did not put money down yet. Okay. These come with a buttload of cash on them. England will have the last choice. They're kind of cash poor, so I guess it's sort of a consolation prize for having to pick a shitty one. Well, we know what Poland's doing. We don't know how they're, what choices they make in this. Put a couple more bucks on each of these. Wow. All right. Which one? 3 cubes and may research constitutional monarchy. So I'm going to get 4 unrest, but I get 3 cubes for that. Get another unrest from this that'll happen. But I could get constitutional monarchy. Right now, everybody looks like they're at peace. I could gain a stability for my diplomacy. I'm not sure I had a real good use for my diplomacy. On the other side of it, I lose 3 victory points. That's big at this point in the game. 2 military cubes, I can only lose 1, so I'm safe with that. Unless somewhere it says, whenever you lose cubes, you might lose other ones. I don't remember. I know, I know that's a consequence of, right, when you lose administrative cubes because your stability is low. But I think that's specified there. Is cubes here? I don't expect it to be. No. And I mean, the thing is, they're all over the rules, right? So where would I find if that's the case? I just don't think it's the case. So I'm not going to look it up any further than I've tried, which is not at all, basically. God. So I would get a stability and a peace in exchange for 2 military, which would just be 1, I guess, and 3 victory points. I think I want to abolish the veto. So I get any 3 cubes. I'll take those as military. I research constitutional monarchy. That gives me 2. And France 1. I can pay 3 peace to gain a stability. We'll do that. Okay, that just happened. But now we lose a stability and we get 4 unrest. Now I get to pick these because I picked the card. Where do I want my unrest? Guess we'll take it back here again. See, what's nice about this, though, is we changed the religion for that. We're going to take religious unrest in here. That's 1. So here's the thing. No, never mind. 1, 2, 3. Where else? We got a Muslim area. Great. It's got to be a port. It's got a boat on it. 4. Oh, this is my only up there. Do I care about that? Screw it. Okay. We took our unrests. All opponents adjacent to Poland gain a claim. Turkey gets their claim first. Turkey's out of claims. Do we have one we don't give a shit about? Oh. So I could put this over here. Right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, See, I got 2 on the Austro-Hungarians there. I can get rid of this one. Of course, I have one on Poland already. What the hell? I think I'm unlikely to go to war with Poland. I'll hold on to that. But Austria gets a claim. There aren't a lot of places. Maybe there are none, because I have a claim there. This is not part of the Austrian realm. I do not believe I have any legitimate claims that I can place. And Poland switches rulers from Augustus II to Stanislaw Augustus. That doesn't cause anything interesting to happen. And now we have a constitutional monarchy in Poland. That excites me for some reason. Like, now Poland would not be disintegrating. Okay? So, like, the reason Poland disintegrated was basically because of the liberum veto. It was the fact that they could not function as a government any longer. But we've got a Poland that's not as big. It's just Poland proper. The Lithuanian areas were not really incorporated, although we do have Estonia and Livonia somehow directly there. So, now I feel like after the events that were picked in the silent session, what did we take? Did we take the cool one? I think we took Intimidate the Zlacha. Absolute monarchy. We have to lose this. We don't lose anything for losing it. And remember, you can bounce between these. The advantage for absolute monarchy, I don't know, was if my stability was high, I would gain something. And again, I can't remember to do these. I probably, if this were not a glossy papered rulebook, I probably would put myself a little note in the sequence of play to remind me of the government types taking place, because they all take place in that stage 3, stage 4, right? Period there. But with glossy, it means that I can't use pencil. I could use, a pen doesn't even work on them very well. I could use like a Sharpie or whatever on it. Let's see these. This is stage 4, plus enforcing peace. Stage 3 and 4. Phase 3. Yeah. And is it mentioned? Is this my fault? I want to say it's my fault. Phase 3. I don't see anything really close here. There's, these things, but they're not covering it. And phase 4 also does not seem to mention it. God, my nose. I gotta stop. Like a little bower that sort of digs really close to my house, which is where the wedding party was, probably to take photos or whatever. It's a good spot for that, but unfortunately, they've moved probably back to the pavilion or whatever, and they're like I said, relatively quiet. Luckily for me, I have toilet paper up here, so all I had to do was blow my nose. Let's think about the Turks, but we probably should change batteries very shortly. I'm down to I've got an acceptable amount of cards. I could pass and force a peace. I don't think that's a good idea. I have an artillery here. I'm going to get rid of this unrest marker. We know we're screwed. I need to switch batteries, then we'll get to the French. Interesting issue for the French. I have a Man of the Church card, but it is my only administrative bonus point. I kind of don't like using the development, the last pip off the development card, because, yeah, see, I also have a Harbor Refugees, so I could grab someone, but I only have one cube over there, and I think I want to use my other cubes. Although I have a lot of military cubes, and nothing I really absolutely need to do with them. And I have no military cards, so I may do a repositioning. Let's do it that way. We'll play the Man of the Church. I can't take a cardinal anymore because I'm Protestant, and we'll just convert that area back to being Protestant. All right, Spain wants to get rid of their final religious problem, I guess. And I could do that with development. It's not my final. I got 2 left. Shit. Oh boy, this is not going to work well, because I also have a lot of unrest. I need to get rid of this. I have others that I may want to convert otherwise. So I'm going to do this the expensive way for 2 cubes and $3. I know this only cost me 1. It seems more advantageous. And that gets me another one of these here. Do we want it there, or do we want it up here? I don't know. Not so sure I want to siege things, even though I'm going to lose victory points for losing control of stuff. I feel like I have too much unrest. I need to convert these 2. I got 1 over there. I got a bunch over here. Maybe I didn't want all those armies all over the place, but that's okay. I needed that army. Refreshing this made sense. A couple of troops, whatever. Maybe they'll come in handy next turn, but I got to pay for them this turn. But anyway, that's my action there. Every time that I go off camera, I have to blow my nose now. Let's do a quick siege over in Scotland. Take this back. I'm running into trouble though. Like 2 of these, plus I don't have a religious situation. I don't have tolerance. Wow, just problems everywhere, aren't there? That brings us back around to the beginning, and we are going to stop there for a while, because my nose is running this much. I shouldn't be up here playing. It's kind of funny. I tried to go to sleep around 2 or 3 in the morning. Sure, that's pretty bad for most people, but for me, that's not too bad. It means I'd get up at a reasonable hour of the day. A couple hours, I try for about an hour. I couldn't go to sleep. Seems reasonable. Then I get up and I fuck around, online or whatever for, all online, for another 2 hours. And now I get like this weird second wind where I'm up here and I'm playing again. Anyway, Austria is declaring war because Turkey looks like, 6 cubes they're probably not going to waste. But I can't guarantee it. And I'm kind of running out of things that I want to do. Sure, I have a lot of cubes, but it seems like a good idea. Now, my situation is a little complicated. I can only build 3 units down here. Well, actually 4. Let's move another one of these there. Now let's let's put the cav there, just in case the Turks manage to come up on me. I don't think they can. I can only build here, 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 and here. I already had a unit there. I'm building some additional units and putting myself quite a bit in debt over here, and it's going to cost me a cube to combine those armies to move down there, but I need a bigger force than I had. I need at least 2 artillery. I want the stuff to protect it, etc. To begin, launching my attacks into the Turkish territory. Poland's got a complicated situation. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 territories in unrest. Now, some of them are religious differences, which are just going to cause problems, and they'll turn into unrest anyway. So, like this one, this one, this one, I don't want to touch those because they've got a religious differentiation. Those are going to fall into unrest unless I spend points against that. But, now this is a religious differentiation too. Okay. And then I have the hell of Bohemia, which I can't play with the areas in unrest without clearing that army out of there. And that army is now a problem because there's 2 areas in unrest. I'm going to lose one of them. I already lost this completely. When this got sieged, that's not core. So this is no longer Polish, which is terrible. Yeah, I can't afford to lose territories there. Yeah, I don't know what to do. I'm fucking up left and right. Like, that's something. The rules are simple on it, but it's hard to remember what they are. When an area is conquered or revolts like that, it swings over. And why was that Bohemia? Why was that Prague itself? I don't know. Like, I might have fucked something up by making that Prague. But assuming the Poles didn't choose that. Okay. So that should be out of my hands. The only places, well, speaking of which, here's another one. Nope, they chose a Spanish one. Okay, good enough. Yeah, if something goes into revolt and it's not your home territory, it's not yours anymore. And there is no core marker in Bohemia. I don't know how you make things your core. I don't think there's an operation that lets you do it, unless one of these does something different. So yeah, for the most part, conquering areas, they might not stay yours if you can't keep them under good status. This just puts me in an ugly position because this is going to conquer more of my Polish territory, and I'm going to lose the advantage of being Poland, really. But I can lose other areas too, so I just don't know what to do. I think I build an army, put it here. See, but I don't know how that happened. I may have a claim to Bohemia now. I don't know. Non-core provinces are liberated. For each area with a... Owners must return whips to there and place a CB token on the new province owner. Whoa, that's totally different. That's not a claim. You get a casus belli against it. Oh boy. Which actually is a penalty if you don't take over territories that switch over. So that I've been misreading too. I've just been butchering this game so completely. And, you know, a lot of it, I hate to go to this, but a lot of it is the Eurification of it. The Eurification means that there's a lot of these little things that aren't, you know, all that well. Some of it is the rules, the Eurification of the rules. You know, if I open up a rule book of the old type, like the original game was, it will explain things like, hey, what a casus belli is and everything about it. If I look here, haven't been getting any, probably because I didn't notice that. So on page 22 is the only place it's mentioned, which is awfully far in the rules. And it tells you the different kinds, general CB tokens. Some will give you this, but, you know, again, if I didn't look at this and notice this line, I'm not going to remember it, because there's no broad discussion of what a casus belli happens because of. Now, when it comes down to it, this is the only time I think the general rules generate them. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's someplace else where they snuck in there that I didn't notice. But I was looking for, before I actually looked in this to see if the claim symbol was here, because that's what I expected. Because that seems to serve the same purpose. But no, when there's a rebellion, a casus belli shows up. What does that mean? Well, under any reasonable circumstances, there should be a casus belli here for the British. However, the event did not say to put one there. But if it was a similar situation, that's, I guess, what would have happened. And again, there's nowhere in the rules where it talks about what each of the counters kind of means. I'm used to like a paragraph or so discussing each thing. The only thing there is here, maybe, I don't know, maybe not. I don't even see it. I don't see what, there's a CB, casus belli. I don't know where you get them from. They're probably on the back of something. Well, I don't see them there. Maybe they're on the back of these. I honestly don't know. And it's all very disturbing, because you can lose track, like I apparently have with casus belli, and have no fucking idea where I'll find them. Now, I know I've seen counters that have them on it, but I don't know. They're like back printed on something or another, I think. I don't know. Like, they can't be on the back of marriages or alliances. Those each have their own specific things on the back of them. So it has to be these triangles. But I think maybe it's on claims? Yeah, it's on the back of claims. Okay. So yeah, Poland would actually lose claim to something, because all I have is a core and a claim here, or a core, perhaps, by that happening. I just, fuck. I mean, every time I play, well, the last couple times I've played, I find things that I've been fucking up all game long. And, you know, it sucks, because I'm no longer in the pattern of playing. It's that pattern of playing that made it so that I, like, was screwing things up, right? Because I didn't have to look everything up. But coming back, I'm having to look everything up, and I'm finding shit that I just didn't see before. So like this, yeah, it makes perfect sense that if there was a rebellion, I would have more than a claim to it. because a claim's kind of a long-lasting thing, I would have a casus belli on it that if I don't exercise it, I am penalized at the end of the turn. That makes perfect sense. If there's a rebellion and you don't quash it, you let it go, you've given up your claim, you know, everything. And now that I understand that, but it's one line without a symbol that I can recognize, because there is no symbol for casus belli, casus bellum. It's one line in the unrest rebellion procedure. It's the only fucking place. The only place. And, I'll give you another one, it's not in the index. So if I'm looking up casus belli to see, hey, how do these happen? I don't expect it to be anywhere in the rule book. I expect it to only come from events. And I've seen a couple that have it. I'm like, okay, I guess they're just not that big a deal. Well, now I see how they happen. They have a general effect. And there's nothing in the rules that sort of ties together the general concepts. It's like cubes. They don't explain what cubes really fucking are because maybe they're not anything, right? There's some abstract weirdness that, you know, and if you don't explain shit like that, it doesn't stick in this poor little brain of mine, right? I'm not used to memorizing cookbook recipes or whatever you want to make the equivalent to this. I'm used to learning what foods taste right together and why and stuff like that. And you don't get that by reading cookbooks either, right? You know, but you can get those kind of ideas by reading a text that goes into more detail than a cookbook would as to why something is needed, why you're adding something, why you need, you know, salt in this. It's not just for flavor sometimes, right? It's there to break down proteins. I don't know, just shit like that. So I don't know what to do. I'm just going to make that disappear. And again, I feel like I'm just playing at random now because I don't understand the rules. You know, it's very clear I don't get this game anymore, right? I thought I got it. I didn't. It was a lie. What I was looking at, and this is the interconnection of all these different concepts that, like, again, it feels like a fucking heavy Euro as opposed to a real war game, right? The interconnection of stuff has to do with, you know, where you find the little pieces in the rules and they all put together. So like one of the things, well, I don't want to flip this over because I know at another stage it's gonna flip back to unrest, except for my tolerance. And I just don't fucking know what to do, but I gotta save those, right? So yeah, I'll build an army. I'll build a fucking army. I hate it. I fucking hate it. And what do? We can put that right in Bohemia. We've lost Prague somehow. Who knows how? You know, I mean, I know rules-wise. It's because I couldn't see the rules. I don't have a shitload of money. I'm just going to pay $4. And I'm going to quit again for the time as soon as I fight this battle. Do I want to put my king there? If I built a cav, it would make more sense because my king gives me cav dice, but cav dice give me something anyway. So let's just fucking risk it because that's the way we play, right? What do I get? 2 of them? And I don't know what the fuck to do because there's just no way to repair the amount of damage that I've done. All right, I did tons of damage to them. And they did damage to me, but they can only do 1. So this goes here. This goes away. I save my 2 spaces. And now, on my next turn, I win a cube back. I can restore 4 of my unrests, but I don't know. All right, well, I mean, I can't just keep fucking stopping, right? This is just driving me fucking crazy. I want it over with now. Like, this is how I was feeling about Invasions. I tried real hard to give it a chance. I really did. I'm not a big fan of Britannia type systems, but I thought all that extra complexity would work. But again, it was this Eurofied rule book. It wasn't a Euro style game. It's a Britannia style game. It's a mess, but it kind of tried to follow the Euro style rule books, and not to the extent that this does. This feels like I've opened up, Le Havre or something like that, right? It feels like I've opened up something that people don't know how, did not learn the lessons that the heavy wargamer community learned about writing rules. And that this shit doesn't sink in if you don't give, like, more than just a line in the rules. After, during stage X, you do Y. Maybe it works for some people. Maybe it works for people who follow the rules explicitly every single fucking time that they're working through. Anytime they do it, they follow line by line to see that they do things right. The number of times I've had to do that is why there's so much fucking video on this game, right? Because I keep having to look shit up because I don't trust this rule book to do it right. At times I had said, they did a pretty impressive job. They did. They got everything in here, or almost everything, or whatever. But it's not in a way that communicates to someone who's used to gaming this type of big game. It's just not. Those super heavy Euros, which are a lot lighter than this, they're past the limit for me, right? I can't remember the shit in them. This has a little bit more grounding in terms of, giving me some reality and everything. But it's not enough. Not when you start throwing things like the cubes that serve like 18 different purposes and are somehow limited. Not when there's just so much that it's like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm trying to decide, do I want to play the Turkish turn, or do I plug this camera in? Like, if I play the Turkish turn, I probably make it around to the Brits. Builds an army here. It's a small one. A couple of infantry and an artillery. I, too, need to bring forces up. Now, I can do this with a naval move. I shift, my galley fleet, say, over, crap. I don't know where this is. Over here. And then I can shift this entire army to join that one. And that gathers my forces. Do I need both armies? That gives me the advantage. And basically the Austrians have a small army. I have a small army at the front. And we both have reserves coming in. Of course, with the number of cubes we have for the battle, for actually conducting war operations, it just means we're not going to get much done. Because we have to rely on pulling more and more forces forward. But it's the way it is, man. It's the way this game fucking works. 15 years, 20 years, whatever a turn is, you can barely move in it. No way you're going to invade Russia in this game from France. I just can't see it. We'll see. Maybe there's a card in here. Maybe there's a military technology I don't have yet that, allows you to use cubes for so much more, but so far, no. The French do their little siege thingy, which gets me here. I probably need an occupied marker for that. There's not a whole hell of a lot of them because they're on the back of the power struggles. I don't know. Claim occupied, this, that. But it's all automatic, which feels absolutely ridiculous until you realize, there's probably 2 years in these sieges. So if you put the effort in, you get it, right? Spain's less worried about sieges than they are about unrest. I've just fucking decided that. So screw it all. Wait a minute, I got a development marker. Do I need that? I am revolutionary. This is not revolutionary. That's a problem. Do I have tolerance? I don't know. I gotta walk all the way over here and look. And if I didn't think of it, I wouldn't notice. No. I know I wanted it. I didn't know if I'd bought it. I have an unrest slide under here. How big a problem is that? Yeah, I don't know. I got an army there. That helps. These unrests aren't that big a deal. These two are a big deal. I have one more missionary. Is there somewhere I can use him that's of use to me? These areas are not revolutionary. That's problematic. If I make them revolutionary, they may spread to each other. Basically looking at, I can spend 1 cube. That can be this cube. So I can do this. This is going to go in unrest. Fuck me. All right. I do this one. That's 1. Oh, that's 1. I was doing 2 or 3. I don't even remember how many fucking cubes I had. I may have paid 2 for that. I think I probably should have to, but nah, I think I have 3 total. This is not revolutionary. It might be. I mean, that's what I'm kind of hoping for, that this will go revolutionary, I guess. All right. We hope it does. We're going to be pissed when it doesn't. And then I have one more. This is revolutionary. It can go. Of course, the English, if they do not, if they had one of these development cards, they could swing it to their side. The English, do I want to siege a town or do I want to convert their unrest? This is Catholic, not good for me. I don't know. I think I cure unrest. Okay, 2. I cure this one and this one. Although that's revolutionary, it's gonna fucking go over anyway. Everything's revolutionary. But that's a vassal state. It only flips 1, so that's between here and there. So I get something out of it, I guess. I don't know. And that ends this, and I am done for this round around. I made it around the table again. Like, that's a big hurrah, because I keep finding out stuff that I've been fucking up consistently throughout the game. And, look, I'm not the best with rules. There's no question about that. There are some games that, how they're just designed and how they're written, the rule books don't work for me. And this is one. Now, could I fight these rules perhaps even harder than I had to with the original EU? The original EU, there's no question the rules are horrible in it. You have to make shit up all over the place. There's something kind of nice about that, because you know that nobody can be playing the rules as they were intended. There's just no way you can get it right. It's so obvious, and the same thing with invasions, to tell you the truth. It's both Thibault games and Le Grand Guerres as well. It's just so obvious. Now, Le Grand Guerre, a little bit better work was done on it, because he had a co-designer in it, or a developer, who helped put some brakes on the absolute failure to explain things well. But if you're looking at something like this, I do find the correct interpretation of the rule, the correct way the rules should be. These shouldn't be there. They should be being swapped back and forth. It's an abomination to me. This bit about The Casus Belli is not. I understand that. That works. That fits my mindset perfectly fine. Will I remember it from now on? I don't know. What's the other thing that I forgot? These fucking, government types. I forgot when they take effect. They're not in the rules, right? They're just not in there because it's assumed you have the card. That covers it, right? But that's fine if it's not like a 6-player game with a tableau of cards that is only between a couple of the players. And there's just no way to do this differently except by giving players cheat sheets with all the different cards written out on them, and then they check off the ones that they're involved in so that they know. And even that wouldn't work for me. I've proven that with Age of Renaissance. I've proven that with Advanced Civilization. You give me too many cards that, too many things that I have to deal with. Cards would be more helpful, but little things like a sheet of paper with a lot of information on it, you give me too much of that and I'm not going to be able to follow it. What I can follow is something like Dune, which has a cheat sheet like that gives you a list of all the different capabilities and cards you have on it, but you only have to worry about the couple you have at any given time. You don't have to be constantly looking over it to see, hey, what's my capability here? Why? I can't remember what I can do, whatever. And this game would be the scale of Age of Renaissance in terms of too much shit, too many little pieces of information. Now, when you look at the original EU, what is there of that nature? What is there that's not core rules? Core rules that it tells you about why the rule is what it is to some extent. It doesn't go into huge designer's notes on this, but it does kind of tell you what the intention of each rule is, what it's meant to represent. If it's not just blatantly obvious, which it usually is, right? If there was something like cubes in that game, it would kind of explain it. Well, that's basically probably at most 2 or 3 events each turn. Two or three events, which are similar to these cards, more detailed, more information on them, but that you have to look up. Now, they may be horribly written, they may not make a fucking bit of sense, but it's not a lot of stuff, and you know where you gotta look, right? And for the core rules, again, you can follow them pretty much, if you don't have something clearly in mind, you know that you don't have it in mind. It's not something like, oh, I was supposed to put a Casus Belli counter there because there was a revolt. There just isn't shit like that. You might roll on the revolt table and get a result that you're like, well, what does that do? And have to look up what it does specifically. It's like the rebellion table here. Do I notice, missing that line of text? What's up with that? Well, that's something that happens to me. I will miss lines of text even in a traditional style rulebook. But you start throwing a lot of pictures in something. You start throwing a lot of iconography in it instead of words. And that's what I start expecting. And what I expected there was this. I expected to see that. When I didn't see it, I skim over. I don't expect every line to be important, right? Anything that is important enough kind of takes up a couple lines of text usually. Or as its own segment. So this one was where? This one was here. It's in this massive stuff. I look, non-core provinces are liberated. Okay, see this page. First of all, I have to go to that page. Owners must remove any more and place a Casus Belli on the new province owner. Okay. But this is the part that's kind of important that I lose this. And also the see page 37. There's just so much symbolic representation that's not like normal words. And that sentence, it just gets dropped from my mind. It makes it easier to do something that I'm pretty good at anyway. And I also have to do a lookup into here to see what happens in liberation. Now this is spelled out here. Does it say it again here? A province which is assigned a pocket, if it is true, do not consider the core province as a realm other. Place this. The province is now controlled by the realm who core province. Okay. This is worse. So it referred me over to here. This tells me what's going on here. And nowhere is that mentioned, the casus belli marker, right? Let's look. Casus belli is going to be marked as CB, and I don't see it here. It is not mentioned here. So the reference into here may have actually, which is a more detailed version of exactly what this was saying. Right? I think, I don't know. But now I'm really seeing it. Like why this fucking happened to me. And this is definitely bad rules to do that. So I was here, I read this, core provinces placed in the, it's not a core, non-core provinces are liberated. Is that what it is? Yeah. Because it's areas with both blips and bleeps. Wait, no. Oh, this is only through a specific thing. Wait a minute. Maybe there wouldn't be a casus belli. Here's why. This is rebels siege or move. This is if a rebel army went and took it over. Okay? That would cause a casus belli if a non-core province was liberated. This is something different. A province which is assigned a rebellion result or sieged by one of these, outside of that other rule, I guess, I don't know, follows this, which does not create casus belli. And this is why, there is no standard. There is no sort of guiding principle having to do with those casus belli. Now, my feeling is this became Bohemia. It is a rebellion. It should have created one. Just like I think this should have created a casus belli. Or a claim. Or something. And it didn't. And I don't think this should have, actually. I don't think I fucked up. I think I'm following the rules. Because that was generated by a rebellion result over here. I think. I don't know. Because I'm really iffy about why there was an army in Bohemia as well as that. But now I'm left with I don't understand this aspect of the game again, right? I don't understand what it's meant to represent. It's like some of the other things. It's like the abomination of the religions moving around and just disappearing from an area if there aren't enough counters. If that religion got too big, too bad about you, Poland. All that work you made to, make your Orthodox areas Catholic, well, unfortunately, Spain made a Muslim area Catholic, and now you're back to being Orthodox. What? Yeah, this is just as bad if my current interpretation is correct, which is that, and it's hard to tell because this doesn't have it at all, right? This does not have a casus belli in it at all. And it counts as sieged by a rebel army or on the rebel die roll. Whereas this has rebel siege or move. This is where there are rebel armies. Now, it creates this further thing. Non-core provinces are liberated. Go to here. Owners must return these and place a CB token. I think in the one case where there's a rebel army already on the board and it creates and it sieges an extra area. And those could be NPR armies as well. Non-player realm invasions work the same way. That will create a casus belli. Now, that could create a casus belli while there's a war ongoing, which is even goofier, right? And I don't know when the penalty is for casus belli. See, peace and rebels phase is here. When do you get the penalty for casus belli? Right? Because this only happens in the rebel siege or move phase, but the prestige penalties are here. I don't think that's there. I don't know where the Casus Belli are mentioned. There's like a penalty for having them. I think. I thought. Cleanup? Maybe? See, I've never had Casus Belli markers on the board, so I don't know. Disband allied units. That doesn't look right. Disputed succession. I thought there was a penalty for leaving a Casus Belli on the map. Maybe there's not. Or maybe it happens up here. Okay, so it does at least happen in the right place. You'd lose 2 prestige if you remove a Casus Belli marker that you didn't use. Which means if the rebels create one, you have the next turn to get it back. That's at least fair. That's at least reasonable. But yeah, it's missing it over in the, not the Rebels siege or move, but the roll rebel dice section does not include the Casus Belli. So if that was generated by a die roll revolt, which I think it was, but I don't know. Why is that troop there, you know? Then it would have not generated a Casus Belli. So a country can liberate itself by an immediate rebellion, but if it's done by troops sieging, depending on the situation, if it's done by troops sieging in that particular phase, or if a card says otherwise, but it will generate a Casus Belli. And it's like, what? I don't know. Austria quickly consolidates their armies, getting them into one big group. Turkey's going to have to do the same thing, but you know, Poland. I spent cubes on the 2 unrest that they had in Catholic areas. Now here's the question: these 2 I can ignore. I do not want to spend for them because nothing's going to happen. Same with this one. But I think I want to spend one on this. I'm still going to end up taking one there. But it'll be one of the ones I already have. And I can ignore one of them. So I will be getting, let me just count this. Not here, because I only have 1 province in each of these. Not here. Even though these are all different religions, they already have unrest, so they can't get any worse except through the die rolls, and those are going to happen no matter what. Not here, but I will be taking one here, which I can ignore. I could ignore one more. So I could spend another cube to reduce the unrest. Now I have an army. Which army? I have this army there. That could get overwhelmed. What am I going to ignore? I'm going to ignore this. And I don't have any other wrong religions that are in good shape. So I can hope I get lucky on those die rolls, which, you know, I have some control over. So I'll spend my extra one. I didn't notice this. There are 2 here, but they're both in unrest. I'll flip this one over so that I can ignore that province. It's also going to consolidate their armies, but they're going to do it using a naval move. 1, 2 to there. And that allows me to ship these out into the Aegean and across. Now I could actually shift this over too. That might be helpful. Let's put that light ship over there. And then, I don't know, I guess we'll combine into this army. So now, we actually, I think, have a bigger army than the Austrians. We have 6 and 2. Yeah, they're the same size. Neither of us have a leader in play, but we can drop a leader from our hand, but that costs a minimum of a cube. Neither of us have a ruler we could just use. I usually use the king because the cost of a military cube is high, but if you play, if let's say the Austrians attack, and I think they have to choose first then, if they don't play a cube and the Turks do, that may be a cube very well spent. Even though it takes an action away from the Turks, it may win them the battle, which wins them the war, perhaps, although Austria could throw another army together. Either could. The Turks are a little lower on cash. That's a cute move they can do. And I'm going to do it because it's cute. I don't have a hell of a lot to do with all these military cubes. I could shift some things. That might be useful. Do I need a missionary? I cured whatever problem was there. I could study technology conceivably. If there was a military, so I could shift one of these, and if there's a military, I could then study a technology from either Spain, Austria, or England. Let me just check this. See if there's anything I'm dying to do there. I think I'm going to go with what I'm doing. Spain has colonization policy, which could be useful, but, you know. Austria has tolerance. Again, very valuable. And I wouldn't be giving points on that. Military drill adds a debt, and debt is particularly painful because I have the National Bank. Ooh, I could study revolutionary regime. Ooh, that does not sound wise. Especially since I have a constitutional monarchy, which I think is the best of them. I would guess. Is that just my own favoritism? And trade companies, which again could be useful. So let's see. Which was the one that was available? I think it has to be military, which means drill. I don't have the points to do any of the others. So when I'm looking at things like colonization policy, I can't do that because I don't have an admin cube. And I would need to shift a cube here to pay for this. And then I would have one. I have a spy network. Hold on. So it costs one less. So I could actually study technology, but I can do that later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare war on Denmark. They're not allied to anyone. That gives me a free move here into the Gold Coast. That is only a one town. My army sucks. Oh, this is not good. I could raise a bigger army. I was not counting on this, but I actually own this and could raise an army there. Not going to be allowed to. I got to fight a naval battle first. Ugh. But this is worth it. This will get me the Guinean coast. Okay. And I fixate on these. Maybe the technology is better. I don't know. I don't remember. You know, I didn't look over the entire victory point thing. I don't see technologies, ideas, whatever, to be a part of this. So, me stealing colonial policy, I just don't think there's enough time for it to be worth taking an area. Okay, so the declaration of war triggers a fight here. because this is a colony, it has a navy. I can't create a fleet to give an admiral to because I have this. I already have a fleet, so I'm not allowed. However, I have 2 ships to their 1, which gives me a definite advantage. And I roll the dice. Okay, I hit them. And the Dutch take 1 of my ships down. That gets me a cube back. Yay! Good enough. And moves this over. Remember what I just said. Dane's not Dutch. Could pass, take $5. Might not be a bad idea. You got some debt. You could pay it off. Only one person has the National Bank, yeah. I could shift that cube and do something like cure an unrest or capture an area. Okay. That would take me a couple of actions. I don't think that's worth it. I have 2 cards I could play. I have Naval Traditions, which is very appealing. Allows me to do navigation, which does exploration for cheaper. That's pretty nice. This would eat some of my cash. And Royal Marriage. Now, Royal Marriage is often very valuable. And there might be areas I want to do. So, for example, I could get a marriage in Rome, which is under this. The problem is I need a cube in the area to do it. I only have 1 cube. I wouldn't be able to do both. I don't want to play a cube just for shits and giggles if I'm not going to play the card. With Naval Traditions, I'm giving up a +2 over here. Are squares an issue? I don't see squares dying here. So I think I'm going to pay for the Naval Tradition and put that out. Hard to see, you know, what the value is, right? I mean, if I can colonize, that's great. But I'm not sure I have the time to do so. This turn is over. There's 1 more deck left. There's 1 more quarter left. So, you know, maybe I'd have been better off trying to save my situation. There was something else I wanted to say. Something that was important. Well, I thought it was. In terms of victory points, some reason why it mattered who I was going against here. And I can't think for the life of me what the fuck it was. Oh, yeah, I know why. So, if Spain passes, they might start the series of passes. It's probably not going to fall at this point, though. Spain, England, France just entered a war. They're not passing. Spain, England, Austria and Turkey are at war. Poland is probably passing. So, yeah, we're probably going to lose out on some cash because England, Poland are probably going to pass. But Turkey and Austria are at war. They're not likely to pass until that war gets resolved. Which means, so long as France is still doing shit, the turn's not going to end. If it was going to end, if Spain might have denied Turkey and France an extra turn, well, Turkey an extra turn, or something along that line, I think that's where it would have gone, right? 1, 2, 3, nah, it would come around to France anyway. But if I was denying an extra turn, it might actually influence who could win this war, how much they could take out of it. But they're both ahead of me, as is Poland. You know, the points involved in, you know, trimming a little bit off the war probably are not that important. I'd also like to see Turkey go down more. I think Turkey's ahead of Austria, mainly because they have this thing. England's in a tight spot here. I could just pass, but kind of don't want to because I need to colonize. says I have 2 that are captured. I think it's only 1. I'll colonize, no, I'm not colonizing that. I'll colonize down here in Guyana. Not optimal, not by any means. It's the only place I have. Remember, I'm cheating on colonization. I wish I don't know. I just don't know how to do this. I feel like there are so few cubes for colonization, and then you end up spending so much trying to keep your country together that something needs to happen to generate more cubes in the game. Because even when I was doing, you know, so colonization fell behind. There's no question of that. Early wars maybe fell behind. But at some point in the game, I started learning, you know, how to, or that it's wise to get advisors. And that, yes, right at the beginning of the game, there is a money crunch. And you're probably not able to generate as many cubes as you want to. But later in the game, there's a massive unrest issue happening all over the place. Is that a fault of how my events came out, or maybe how I reacted to them? I don't think so much. I think that's just the nature of the game. And it does make sense that countries wouldn't be able to cure their unrest all that much. But not doing that and pursuing other goals gets you into disastrous situations, unless you have tolerance. If you have tolerance, you can get away with a little bit of, you know, luck in terms of that. And that's why the Turks did well, and why the Polish caught up, I think, is that those were the 2 countries that had tolerance, and they could afford some of the religious unrest. Anyway, the English do the colonization. That passes them on the $5. You would say, well, your money's not in great shape. There's definitely that. But maybe you'll catch up, whatever. The problem is, for that cube management thing, I am sitting on 2 $4 plus 3 advisors. That'll give me a lot of power. But again, I'll be cutting my money to the bone, right? I'm at least following the designers. I believe it was one of the designers. It may be a playtester or something, but somebody who has great familiarity with the game from earlier periods. Indication of, yeah, debt is your friend. I'll buy that. I'll buy that. And that may actually be why I had a cube shortage early on. Like, very early in the game, I was very, very loath to take on debt. I've become accustomed to having a lot of debt, and I'm okay with that now. Okay with that to the point where I'm risking bankruptcy here, and we'll probably be very close to it. If things go very badly in the revolts phase, I may go bankrupt. And the kind of nice thing, just non sequitur as I started to leave, I almost turned it on to say, you know, I really should fucking go shopping. I say that all the time, right? Yeah, my larder, my reserves are long gone. I've trimmed them down, and that's got to do with a number of things. One, how I'm not shopping that much. 2, how inflation is making it so that, like, oh, things that I stock up on sometimes, you know, I see a sale on meat or something like that. Now I look and I'm like, whoa, that's expensive, you know, as opposed to like the stuff that I use every week. But when I go too long, I end up eating into those reserves that I've built up over the years. And my freezer is actually much emptier. But anyway, no, that's not what I wanted to get to. What I wanted to get to was, you know, I walk away from the game sometimes and I'm just pissed off because something has just angered me so much. Whenever that happens, I'm just really angry about, you know, the game and its representation and everything. But the scope and the visual presentation are enough to bring that excitement and that enjoyment back. that I had before. Even now, even though, I found a couple more things to really anger me about the game, to really make me, unhappy about how it manages things, I still can look at it and see the world position and see what's happening and what's happened. And that brings a kind of happiness to me, a joy in watching something develop. Now, that can happen with any game. It's probably my biggest joy, right? I hack on games about their historical accuracy and whatnot, but that's not what brings me pleasure in a game. So when I look at things like I was recently doing Leipzig down there, and that series, which doesn't really, to me, it's not accurate the way, say, Talavera, which I am about to play soon. I kind of thought it would be one of a couple of breaks that I took in the midst of this, because I knew this would take a while, but I just can't bring myself to break away and do something in between. And it's for the best, because this is hard. Like, I can't keep this all in mind anyway, as it is. But when I look at those two systems, the Napoleonic Brigade series over there, I think in its current state is a really, really good, solid, believable representation of Napoleonic warfare. Maybe the best that I've seen. Well, I think it is the best that I've seen. The only question is there something more abstract that I think works better, like the Zucker series, which, yeah, I know. I know at least one or two people who really hack on it as, no, it's not accurate, etc. To me, it's like, it's so abstract I can't tell whether it's accurate. I agree it doesn't look like it's really representing what it's supposed to, but I don't really have a grasp on what the supposed to would be in that case. But there are other people who do. But the Viva l'Empereur, which is the Le Bataille de Leipzig, is a simpler system. It's easier to approach than the NBS series, but it gives me the same kind of view where I can see the lines forming and operating the way they should. I can see the fire results. Yeah, if I look closely, like with this, if I look closely, it's not doing what I expect it to. But when I take that, step away from the game a little bit and look at it after I do whatever little sessions I do each time, it gives me this picture, and I imagine what's happening. And that's what's happening here. I can still picture what's happening in the world just as well as I could with the original EU. And far better than I can with the damn computer game. Somebody was suggesting, I assume they didn't watch much of this and just stumbled onto one of the videos, maybe because they're a fan of the computer game. But they were watching and they recommended, hey, well, you should try the computer game. And I'm like, well, I've played pretty much every version of it, I think. Maybe there's a newer one that I haven't. I've played up to 4. And 1 and 2 fairly heavily. But they do not do the same thing, because I don't have the map of the world spread out for me. Now, the compromise of not having a map of the world and having these little subsections here, a la, what's the game that reminds me of? Blackbeard. Blackbeard does that, where it's got these little, and there's later games that do it, but this really reminds me of Blackbeard. For various reasons. But that takes away some of the imagery, this real strong focus on Europe and everything else being kind of, just sort of, I don't know, it feels like the off-board regions in Warrior Knights or something like that. It's not where the main action is happening. Whereas I feel like in the original EU, yes, Europe is given more, like, scale-wise, it's given more emphasis than the rest of the world, but it kind of all looks like the world. It's kind of like playing a game of whiff, you know. Sure, Europe's got a bigger map than you know, Asia does, but they're both really there, and you could really see them. All right. As the Austrians, I'm going to actually delay a little bit. Yeah, I'm in a position where I should be attacking or whatever, but I'm worried. There's a lot of Turkish troops there. It's about equivalent. I don't have a great leader. I'll probably play him just to get the extra die. I have a cav in my army. But instead I'm going to spend to get rid of this. This is a problem I don't want to deal with. I can convert the area rather than just remove this marker. So get rid of that for now. But this is no longer going to be Muslim underlying either. It is going to be Counter-Reformation. And I got to find another yellowish thing to put there. It's kind of funny because the advantage of being Counter-Reformation seems so high that once it turns, that's where everything should end up going. Now, this may be where this weirdness about moving things around may actually work better than I tend to complain about, right? Like, I'm here thinking, oh, geez, you know, you convert an area to Catholicism, to Protestantism or whatever, it's happening in a pretty short time. Consider the old, everything's old, empires of the Middle Ages over there, where it can take you 100 years to convert an area's religion. Now, I'll grant you, the Protestant Catholic switches were fairly heavy. And here's the thing. The Protestant markers are on the other side of the Counter-Reformation. So if you create a Counter-Reformation somewhere, once the countermix is filled, you may be creating Catholic states somewhere else. Now you get to make the pick. So you may be having kind of a double effect. And that kind of almost seems to work. What about the revolutionaries? Well, they have an underlying religion that's the base religion. And here's the other thing. When you remove this recently overlaid religion, the ones that are there by counters as opposed to the ones that are printed on the board, they're less stable. It's easy. It's almost as though they haven't taken that big a hold. Now, here's where the problem lies. It would be very, very difficult to convince me that the Protestant nations that were original, you know, that were settled as Protestant back in, like, I don't know, you know, you're saying, what, the early to mid 1500s, most of them are set there, that they would convert back to Catholic in the 1700s. That couple hundred years has passed, right? I have sort of no problem with things that are struggling along the edges. And that's where kind of the question would be, is can you really believe, you know, well, right now, Saxony is counter-reform. But can you really believe that the Protestantism that exists, you know, over here in Saxony, that's maybe been here for quite a while, not as long as it should be historically, but that's been there for a while, would, if I converted, say, well, not Lombardy, that's not a good choice because that would just flip over. But if I were to, say, change Venetia into a counter-reform Catholic area? Or this, would that make sense that they flip over? Just because it would make life easier for the Austrians to expand it there. And I don't know. I don't know. I think not. I think it would be very, like, to me, it feels like there was a brief period where Protestantism and Catholicism, and the counter-reform side of Catholicism as well, really sparred. And then things in most areas became kind of settled, well, in the empire. In France, there was this, you didn't have the same sort of political settlement that you had in the empire. So things were more fluid there. And it's just not, I don't think either system represents things correctly, but, or historically. But is that correctly, right? You know, to what extent does it make sense? Because France is pretty stable right now. It would only be around the edges that something would change. And since the French own France and they've got a Protestant, it's not going to change. But the way it might change is if Austria expanded into something like this and this went away, you know? That would be the way France might start changing, is that Catholicism would leak in. I don't feel like that makes sense, right? It feels to me like France has settled itself and has decided on Protestantism as a state government. They're supporting it heavily. The only way it's going to leak in is through, you know, the counter-reform is directly through an attack on it. Whereas there might be areas that are still more chaotic. So for example, here, by converting this to counter-reform, it might make sense that a Protestant in Austria or something would also convert over at the same time, without any effort, to standard Catholicism. Because what we're getting here is, because counter-reform Catholicism has advantages that regular Catholicism doesn't. And I can't remember any huge disadvantages. I mean, there's a reason everybody converted over. You know, it was like, burn the witches, or burn the heretics, or don't, you know. That in itself feels unrealistic, though. Like, if you look at all, like, so, the original EU, going counter-reform was not a pure advantage, because you didn't have this kind of infectious nature to it. What it did was it helped you prevent, what did it do? It made you more extreme. It gave you a clear channel to papal control. Like, if you were the only counter-reform state, you had a lot more power. You had kind of control of the papacy. That's not really represented here at all. In fact, yeah, the papal control might actually go against counter-reform policies, and that actually makes sense to me too. I think the main thing was by nations. So Spain got advantages for being counter-reform. Everyone else kind of didn't. They got the best advantages, and these were like individualized things. Like, basically, Council of Trent shows up and everybody gets to choose. And if you're France or England, Austria doesn't count, but France and England are the other two nations that get to choose, basically. If you're France or England, Portugal may as well. I don't think so, though. I don't think they get anything. But France or England wanted to choose a more moderate position. Like, they would suffer problems by going into the counter-reform faith. But Spain would suffer problems by not taking it. And all three of them could choose Protestantism right off the bat. The cost is heavy, but it does have certain advantages in terms of trade and whatnot. None of which are represented here. And I don't feel like the old EU handled that correctly either. Like, there's something I really like about this mechanism. I'm trying to reach for, is there a reason? So it makes sense to me that in removing this, like, that there should be more of a likelihood of falling to the original religion. That's something that isn't likely to happen with my rules change. But, no, and also the counter-reform areas, if we change a Protestant to a counter-reform, and it was Catholic to begin with, which most of the areas are, it'll change back to Catholic if the counter-reform gets removed. And that makes perfect sense to me, that an area would be, really anti-Protestantism, and vibrantly so, yet it would slip back into just what is sort of the baseline of Catholicism. It makes a lot less sense to me, especially in this era, to say that an area would slip from Protestantism into Catholicism, simply because Catholicism is on the board. It makes more sense to me that an Orthodox area that got converted, even within a couple hundred years, to either Protestant or Catholicism, would slowly slip back, might slip back to the original roots. Makes a hell of a lot of sense to me that something would move from revolutionary to the underlying. So the moving of the revolutionaries kind of makes sense. I just don't like the fact that, like, I'm over here adding a revolutionary and it's removing from here. That's what weirds me out. That's what seems wrong. And I don't have a good answer for this. Like, I don't feel like the thing that I'm doing solves the problem, because I'm seeing far too much counter-reform on the board. I'm seeing very, very little Catholicism on the board. It's kind of not advantageous to anyone. Look, Poland has a Catholic area here. There are Catholic areas that are remaining because they were on the board from that. It's not like it's impossible. It's just because the advantages of counter-reform are so high, to protect yourself against the Protestant scourge. Now, if the Protestants hadn't been such a big problem, maybe there wouldn't have been as much desire to have to choose one or the other. To have to choose, look, if I'm not going Protestant, I want to go counter-reform. I do not want to be in this sort of conciliatory position. I don't know. I'm kind of interested in pulling out the card for the Council of Trent or something to see what the costs of going counter-reform were. Here it is. Everybody had to choose, and the cost was 3 admin or 1 stability, which might not cost you anything. So it's 3 admin cubes or a stability, or if you're out of stability, 2 cubes, right? Or if you're out of cubes, no cost, which unfortunately was pretty likely actually at the time this came up, or lose 2 prestige or victory points at the end of the game. And honestly, it just feels like the advantage was like 100% in favor of choosing counter-reform. Like, there was really nothing. Now, the Council of Trent didn't come up, right? That failed. So we had a different means to get into it where people chose. But for the Council of Trent one, it seems almost absolute that you want to go counter-reform. Now, historically, What do you want to say there? Well, Spain definitely was counter-reform. Austria, probably. And both of them have victory point shifts that give them an advantage to go counter-reform. But if France wanted to remain Catholic, and historically they were Catholic at the Council of Trent, it seems like they would not want to just remain Catholic. They would want to go counter-reform. Now, you could argue that they did. It's a hard argument. So France is just such a weird situation because there was a powerful Huguenot presence there and a powerful counter-reform Catholic presence, and the king was kind of caught in the middle and was trying to prevent things from getting ugly. And the wars of religion that happened were really his mother siding with the counter-reform. And it's hard to say what you want to say about it. It's like the king very clearly did not want things like the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, but France as a whole just became chaos. That doesn't show up here, though. Is it the stability loss? I don't know. That seems like a pretty low price in this game. Like, I don't know. Poland, I don't feel went, like, Poland did not go sort of Jesuit crazy, right? It just doesn't seem that way to me. Maybe I'm mistaken about that, because they did start converting the Orthodox areas to Catholic, which they wanted to do beforehand in this game, so, you know. And, you know, historically, you could definitely make a case that Henry VIII went counter-reform as well. But with nations going into either counter-reform or staying normal, I think that's different from how much they converted and how much that counter-reform kind of actually acted as a proper shield. So in Austria, I would argue the counter-reform movement actually did work. In Spain, it probably wasn't even necessary. Like, you just have to put a border here and like fight for southern France or something. In France, it feels like everything was diverse religion, essentially, or a lot of the country was, rather than being either Protestant or counter-reform or Catholic. You know, there were areas that were definitely Catholic, but when you start looking at the size of the spaces here, it's pretty hard. You know, some of them stayed definitely Catholic. Some of them, none of them really went Protestant at the size that they are. Anyway, we're talking way too much about this, I know, but this is the kind of thing that catches me on the game, and I want to fiddle around with it in my head at least. What's up with Poland? They got nothing. Shitty town. You know, I use some of those things like the what's up chicken butt and nothing, shitty town. These are patterns that I never used to say, but except to my wife, but now, like, I don't know, I do on the video because I don't get to talk otherwise, and I don't get to say them. And it's a way of me remembering. I think Poland has to pass. I don't think they have a damn thing they can do. But they have cards. So that's $5 I'm getting. I have no advisors. I'll pay off some loan. That can only help. And move the ship. And take a breather because I was talking too much. Turks want to do something kind of weird here. I think they want to play for time. They don't want to launch the attack, right? They could do that. They could fight the Austrians. I got about equal size. I look at my cards, and I don't have a good leader. I don't have one there, right? This isn't one. This is the only one I have, which is 2 cannon. That's not terrible. But I see something that I really want to deal with. So I'm going to spend 1 cube and do this. I can keep doing that one at a time with these little towns and flip them over and improve I don't know. It's not my stability, but my national, lack of unrest. The only word I can think of for it is stability right now. By doing that, but the big thing that I'm doing is I'm avoiding having to make the attack. Now, if I win the attack, I get a cube back. And that will help me push the move forward. But the move forward I'm interested in is into the Danube, which is Belgrade, Pest, and Hungarian core provinces. Pest is here. Belgrade I already have, but I'd have to shove up this way, and that would expose me, possibly. Although I think the Austrians would probably defend their vassal. It's not guaranteed. Vassals are worth less victory points. If they're taking real areas from the Turks and they have an interest in the Balkans, they might actually have an advantage to, swap territories, as it were. Now, France. France declared war. They had a fight. I now have naval control. This doesn't count as mine. And in fact, I should have a cube there. But this does. And that's important. That's a small town there. I'm going to build an army. Do I want to build troops anywhere else? Do I have a reason to do so? I don't have anything I need to siege. Do I have boats I need to build? I don't know. Can't think of anything. So I think I'm just going to spend $2. I can only get this one guy to build 1 extra infantry. That'll give me better odds when I attack here. Passed with Poland, but I didn't have one. Okay. I'm looking at Spain, and Spain, I believe, has to pass. Don't think there's a damn thing they can do of value. So that's like $4 for them. I have advisors everywhere, so I don't want to play more. But I do want to get rid of that. Because sometimes people catch picayune, little things like that. It's actually only $3, or it's actually only $3 that they gain. So they clear out their money fixing that. And that gets me to the English. 1 cube, and this costs 2 to move. And I've already done this. There's not a hell of a lot I can do with administrative functionality. So I think it's time to pass. Except I have not yet done an event. So, it's time for England to pick their poison. Discontented bourgeoisie. Everybody has to pay 3 admin and 2 military or loses stability and add unrest to all their large towns. Now, I've been building large towns. That would give me 2 of them or more. Looks like I have 3. There's got to be another one. I'm sitting on it there in Wales. Okay. So that doesn't sound good. Do I have constitutional monarchy? No. That would give me a diplomatic card. Do I have absolute monarchy? No. Nobody does. Cool. This would give me some control over some stuff. This looks pretty bad. Is this worse? It's almost as much money. Viva la Revolution. Take military reforms card from the discard and play it for free. That sounds cool. Then you must research revolutionary regime for a 1 military discount or lose 4 stability. I can deal with the stability. That's my cube. I would remove all my rebel armies in my territories and all unrest. And by the way, from your realm, that could be areas you share, interestingly enough. Then you gain 2 unrest and add 3 to one of your areas. Ouch! Opponents without revolutionary regime that are adjacent to your realm lose 2 stability and gain 2 unrest. They also gain a claim in one of your areas. Ugh. Okay. Who's adjacent to me? Well, that's Austria now and France. Spain is not, but I think this is the one I take. Okay. Let's look at this. There was, fortunately, a military reforms. It says play it for free, but it has an automatic effect, which is lose 1 stability. So I lose this beforehand, and I think it's not going to have any effect, but I think that's important to look at. Okay. You must research revolutionary regime at a 1. I can't, I don't have anything. Or lose 4 stability. I lose the 4 stability. Excellent. I have no rebel armies anywhere in my territory, but I do get to remove all my unrest. Well, pity that I paid for unrest to be removed, and only from my realm, so I wouldn't get it off of those if they have any. Then I gain 2 more unrest. Put it back here. And 3 rebel armies in one of my areas. I have an army there. I have a king there. I think this sparks a fight. I'm not going to look it up. I am just not going to do it. And why? Because it may or may not say that it does. It's not going to say that it doesn't anywhere. And whether or not it says it does, I believe it should. So there we have that. We're making decisions here based on, I don't want to look at the rules anymore. I just don't. It's no fun, and it might infuriate me if I can't find that rule. And I don't want to deal with that any longer. We draw for a leader. There isn't one. We grab all the dice. What do the English have? They have 2 cannons with their king, who is actually present. That's King Hernan still. What the hell? How long has he been around? We look here. We don't know what we have. We have cannons, okay. We have tercios still. And that's it. Okay. We get 2 hits. And they get 3 hits. We are wiped out. This army will be here. This army will not. The king isn't injured by this. And we're going to lose some territory. That territory is going to end up revolting and turning to the Dutch. The Catholic Dutch were opposed to the Protestant invaders. Awesome. Okay. Opponents without revolutionary regime that are adjacent to your realm lose 2 stability and gain 2 unrest. All right. We do this in order. Austria is the first one. Austria loses 2 stability. That's 1. And what is it? 2 cubes per. We want to keep our military cubes. 2 unrest. And 2 instability. Ugh. Oh. I think they get to choose the instability, but maybe not. Maybe I make all the choices. Uh-oh. Battery was truly and fully dead there. Now, I am looking this one up in contrast to the last one, because on the last one, I had decided I don't care whether I find it or not. There's basically 2 options. It either says what I want it to say, or, and I think this is more likely, it doesn't, and I don't give a shit, and I'm going to follow what I want. Here I don't have an answer. Like, I don't have something that I'm thinking, well, England should choose where the unrest is, or Austria should. But I do find the controlling rule here. The PR that gains or loses makes the choice. Does it say gains or loses? Yeah, I guess so. The word you always refers to the active player. It doesn't say you choose or anything like that. So the Austrians get to choose 2 unrest for themselves. Well, I'm going to take 1 here. I'm not thrilled about this. I don't have a good answer. I'll take the other one up here, I guess. Again, I'm not happy about any of this, but I have tolerance, so that'll help me. And they gain a claim in an English area. Well, where's an English area? We would like to have claim to Flanders Wallonia. We know that there's some interest there, and that is an English area. Anything else would be kind of ridiculous for us to grab. And France is the other one. Let's take a look at them. They lose 2 stability. Yep, they lose 2 stability, all right. I worked so hard to get that up there. They gain 2 unrest and then a claim to an English area. 2 unrest. Where do we want our unrest? I don't know. There's not really a great solution for this. We don't want to take it, well, this is a core province, it doesn't matter. We'll take 1 there, and we kind of want them both in the same area. So we'll put 1 in, ooh, yeah, it's core. We're safe. We'll put 1 in Nantes as well. All right. But we also gain a claim. We have no claims that we can gain. I believe we actually have to do this. When required to make a choice, if the event affects choices, gain this. You can only have 1 in each area. No, it doesn't say that. I'm allowed to withdraw 1 if I want. Is there a claim that I have that, or a core area that I have that I don't particularly want, that I would rather have in Flanders Wallonia? Got this claim. This is kind of interesting. I'm probably not going to need it, but I don't know that I really need Flanders Wallonia either. I actually have a presence there of a vassal. But that's going to have an unrest issue. I have a cube that I can spend. I have a claim in Burgundy, but I kind of like that. I have a claim in North Italy. I kind of like that. I can get rid of this Venetian claim and put it up here. I think this is more important to me than Venice is in all things. All right, now we do the secondaries. And the first one is attrition. All PRs that are at war except you, the English are the you, must remove a land unit as a casualty for every 4 deployed. Who's at war? I think Austria, Turkey, and France are the only ones at war. Not positive. It's the only ones I can think of. There's a spread of revolution. So there's 4 clusters I get to play around with and grow them. If there are no more available, you may remove one from the board to use it. Yeah, it's very specific there. Spread of religious ideas the same way. Okay, this is interesting. This is called out. If there are no more available groups, you can remove one from the board to use it. They're always placed on top of any religion. Place a Protestant counter-reform on top. Wait, what? Oh, you can't replace another one on the same turn. Ah, you know, I think I did that where one flipped and flipped back. But that may have been, I actually think that's okay. I think that was done due to missionaries and such on. If there are no infectious faith tokens, yeah. So it's kind of interesting. This doesn't call that out. Whereas religions are not one of the things that are replaceable. So it kind of makes sense to me that the revolutionary fervor is treated a little differently from the religions. I'm treating it the same damn way. And the reason for that is because if you've got a revolutionary government, it sucks that you'd not be revolutionary anymore. But honestly, that could be kind of seen as France's like abandonment of, I don't know, of Napoleon. This is the weird thing. Like the revolutionary fervor went away by the time of Napoleon, but like in a sense, it changed. It was no longer what it was during like the Revolution and the Terror. But there was a nationalistic fervor, and that I think never left. Like France kept that even after the war. So I just don't know. I don't know what to say about it. All right. So I've got to pick my spreads. Okay, so let's look at what they are, because I had to replace a lot of things with these squares because I'm cheating, right? First one I did was over here. Take that counter-reform away from the poles. Second one over here. So the first one spreads from this area. Second one spread from up here. Third one spread from Spain into Aquitaine. I don't want to put it up near me. That'll infect me, but I do want to fuck with the French and cause them some religious problems, as it were. And the final one spread from here. Do I really want to put it in Rome? Or would it be more fun to stick it up here and screw with the Austrians? So my idea here is I don't want to help Turkey by turning this into a revolutionary. But I do want to hurt Austria and Poland at the same time. So pushing into their territories seems like it's going to cause them more disruption. Now, what would I have done if I was playing by the rules as written? I'd be taking the revolutionaries away from Turkey and or Spain. It's a really bad idea to be a revolutionary ideology. And remember, they can't flip back and forth. Now we go to Unrest and Rebellion, which is Rebel Dice. And England is restricted to only having to roll one. A couple of these at a time. The English lost the Dutch territory. They're going to lose all their territories, but they are going to get a claim from this attacking here. They don't get it here. So the Netherlands is beginning to grow and take on all of Flanders. And the Austrians ended up having to retire. They could have re-rolled, but didn't want to, or ending up having to retire 3 of their troops. They got troop losses on each one. Poland ended up losing a couple of soldiers and a couple of bucks. It was supposed to be a cube, but that put them further in debt. Turkey had this amazing attitude of compliance, and all their unrest kind of cleared up. Oops, I didn't roll for that guy. $2. Ooh. But I'm not re-rolling because I only allow one re-roll on each. I only allow one re-roll on each die. So if you get anything other than a revolt, if I had gotten a bankruptcy, I would have. I lost a cube and I lost the couple of bucks that I just rolled here. But everything else that I rolled for converted to, hey, we're okay. We're cool. France, I think, may have ended up with some debt, but they actually cured this. And Spain got hit kind of hard. They lost mainly in terms of debt, but they also lost a battle over here, losing their army. Their king wasn't killed. And now we go on to looking for plus signs. Now I know the English king has one, but he's not ill. I was wrong. It was the Spanish king, Philip V, who just showed up not long ago, whereas Humberto of England has been around for quite a while. He was not a plus. He's actually a triangle. And a couple of advisors over in Austria. We are out of these markers now. There's so much debt out. There's no famine or anything yet. So that gets rid of this card. But now we have the fun of engaging the events for the next one. Now these are randomized. This is going to be, again, a revolutionary spread, but here it spreads to the richest areas. So I need to pull 4 more. Luckily, I have my things out, but I'm running out of pieces. I think I'll have to go to these because I got one more flat here. Oh, I got a circle. That spread was ugly. First of all, the richest areas were in Italy. So both central Italy and northern Italy have swung over, coming out of Naples and Venice. But then the next richest areas are in France, and this managed to spread into here and up to there. So now, like, the revolution is swinging through France, which puts them in a hell of a lot of trouble in the upcoming. And since we had a spread of religion or whatever, now we come to the die roll phase, and at this point, England has no advantages. Of course, they only have the one territory. Through the first 4, nothing big happened. Austria got one back. Turkey got their last one back. Some minor costs, but nothing important happened. On to France and Spain. Despite all the, unrest that's about to happen, not much actually took place there. In fact, the Spanish regained Virginia. That is the end of the English turn. We're definitely winding down at this point. It looks like England and France, well, England is going to pass. France has 3 cubes left, and they do have some stuff they want to do. France has still not marched into there. Why haven't they? I don't know. I'm not sure what happened that they didn't, like, did I miss a turn? Or was this the turn that they went to war? Oh, they built an army. That's what happened. They built their army up. Okay. It's hard to remember because those events, eat up so much effort. And those are pretty wide affecting events. We're gonna see a lot of ugliness come from them. Turns are clearly boiling down pretty fast. It's time Austria has to launch their attack. So I'm gonna spend a cube and give myself a general. This is getting icky here. And march in to face the Turks. I could have held off on the general, and that probably would have been wise for a number of reasons. But we'll go into there. And the Turks do not have a general, if I recall. Yeah. Hope we handled everything. I assume we did. I remember rolling dice a couple of times. The Turks do not have... No, they do have one. They could do this 2 artillery here. That would cost one of my 2 military cubes, but it may be my best choice, is to get some dice in there. This is the gun leader. I'll put it here. We also have to spend a cube, and that gets me what? The Austrians have an orange die, and the Turks have 2 blue. Let's look at military capabilities, ideas, whatever. We have cannon, mass conscription. I've forgotten about the entire effect of that, but nobody's been trying to get troops. Austria still has the tercios. Turkey lost it due to their events. Turkey, however, has military drill. Keep in mind that I can get points off of it. And this is at the government choices, even though it's under military, all happen at the end of the turn, if I can remember them. We had military drills, so the Austrians lose a die, right? The Turks have it, the Austrians don't. Can't remember. Got to keep, walking over to that side of the board to see who has what. I mentioned the Age of Renaissance sheets, which work okay, I guess, for one player. They're a little too tight for keeping track of everybody at once, which certainly, if you're playing solo, is sort of a must-have. But honestly, I would want to keep track of everybody's capabilities no matter what, so I could check, are they going to win a fight against me? That's not a military. I'm just trying to make sure I don't have something useful. Okay, the Austrians get, it looks like, 3 hits on the Turks. That's this army. I'll pull that there. Turks, on the other hand, do not have Janissaries. But it looks to me like they cause 4 to the Austrians. So we're down to an infantry and 2 artillery. Big question there. I might have wanted to take an artillery, but I have 2 artillery dice, so it's not that bad. What did I say? The Austrians take 4. This is ugly. I'm going to try to win the fight and still have some artillery, but I'm not in good shape. Now I could retreat. Which would hold on. Might just save me from losing the war. Right? Let's take a look. We're looking at 3. A retreat would cost me 1 of my units. I would lose 1 infantry. So I would no longer be losing the war. I have a whole bunch of cubes. What are my odds like? That's a good question. I have that extra orange die, but I'm down a white die, which really kind of hurts. I have 2 artillery, they have 2 artillery. If I fall back, I still have enough cubes I could build an army and attack again. But there's not going to be time. I'm really torn on this, right? Austria is ahead of Turkey right now. They want to win this, not for any of these, but for things like dominate the Balkans. I don't know how close I am there. Owner vassalized Dalmatia. I have 2. Croatia and Bosnia. That may be where I'm going. I don't know if I'm going there or Serbia. No, this is Croatia and Bosnia. Okay, make that 3. Serbia and Albania, I could get all of those if I win. I think I got to take my chance because this is too valuable, and the Adriatic ports would also come to me on this. If I don't win the war, I lose everything that I kind of... Yeah, the war is really important to me as the Austrians. I really do want to win it. The odds are not good, however. I'm looking at 5 dice to 3. Do I have a military card that'll help me? Oh, I can't do this in the midst of a battle. It'll cost me $7. I could get 3 more mercenaries. Oh boy. See, this is a reaction card. Huh. It can be played as a reaction or a minor action in my turn. I think it's worth falling back. Because, well, wait. Because see, here's the thing. How many passes are there going to be? Poland and Spain have already passed. Turkey could pass if I retreat, and thereby end the war situation, or they could push forward and win a battle against my army, get a cube back and capture some territory, or they could march into an area and do nothing, which would be dumb. They might as well pass in that case. So Turkey holds a possible pass to prevent the war from continuing. That's something to keep in mind. France doesn't look like they're going to pass. They have 3 cubes. One or 2 I stay in the battle. I think the odds are so bad that it's worth retreating and building my army up with my mercenaries with a minor action. Okay. We retreat. And we have to go back to whence we came. That's going to put us on the Poles who are passed to the Turks. Now, Turks, interesting idea. I have a bigger army, or a slightly better army. I don't know why the Austrians withdrew. If I pass, the Austrians only get 1 more turn, and I don't think that they can do what they want to do. But on the other hand, if I attack them, I may gain something from this war. Knowing what the Austrians have, I'm going to put it on a 1 or a 2. The Turks just pass and try to end this, that they suspect too much. I've got a fair chance of winning the battle, and not much will be lost if I lose it from my viewpoint. But I decide to take that pass. I may play some cards. Spend $4 to get myself some extra cubes. Now, I don't know what the Austrians have, right? They would have been able to throw that army together and win a battle here had I attacked. So attacking would have been a bad idea. I didn't know that, but I suspect something, right? They have a military card, and I don't think that the Turks didn't think that they were going to be able to take much, is basically what happened. Would I have rolled that die if I didn't know what the Austrians had? No. I would have probably just attacked. Although that's dangerous because the Austrians have enough cubes they could march in and take stuff. So, you know, it's not a terrible idea to pass. I'm defending my territory. The Austrians are going to have to, you know, they don't have an easy way to get to any of my other territory. They'd have to build an army here and march into here to take this. They'd have to win the battle, which I don't know that they can do. So passing wasn't a terrible idea. It's just kind of against my nature, and I probably wouldn't have done it without that knowledge. But I'm glad that I did check it, because I do think it was a valid option, even not considering that there's this additional threat. That puts me, I spent a lot of the rest of my money, $4, but I got 2 back, on getting a lot more cubes, but I'm really heavily in debt. Bad things could happen during the revolt phase. However, my nation is surprisingly missing all its unrest. Well, except for this. Would have liked to have played that. That would have been another option. Would that make more sense than passing? All right, I'm going to lessen the effect of me knowing that card. Because why? I'm not really terrified of the Austrians. Yeah, so on odd, I'm not going to pass. Okay, I did the pass. Good enough. Because it ends the turn. The thing is, the Austrians have enough cubes they could build a new army and send it in, even without that reaction card. That puts me on France. France has, I don't know what. Okay, here's the fuck up. What the hell? This should not be here. This should be here. But I think I fucked up with the French. I think there should be a town here. No. I did attack this. Okay. Yeah, that had to be occupied because that is not just a colonial area. So I have to spend my French cube. I increased my army size a teeny tiny bit. This is not a native army, so it's no bigger. Do the French have any advantages? The Danes obviously don't because they're not a player. The French have tercios, of course cannons. Okay. Do I have a leader? I could throw a cannon leader in. It's not worth the cube. So here's the French attack. French attack hits. The Dane defense hits. The French win the battle, and they get a cube back for sieging. So their turn could actually last a while. It looks to me like Spain's probably passing. I forgot that Spain had already passed. The English laid down $8 worth of rulers, of administrators, whatever, and paid off some debt, doing their own pass. That means one more round left, and that foils Austria. Austria's plan is up in smoke. I looked at the board and thought, well, Turkey's not going to pass. They're at war. Yeah, I mean, I did think about them passing, but yeah, 2 of them, that screws me over. I could march in and attack the Turks. I could win the war that way. There's nothing for me to gain. So I'm fucked. I'm fucked by this stupid timer thing. Had I started the war earlier, maybe I wouldn't be. I was delaying the war, there's no question about that. It's one of the things that infuriates me about the game. I haven't, in part, I don't know, part of it is I don't like it, right? I simply don't like it. It doesn't feel like it's representing anything. It feels like it's warping time and doing all kind of weird crap. But it also feels, it's also the case that I don't understand how to manipulate it properly. If I did, maybe I would come up with a better excuse for it, right? You know? But it feels like such a gamey mechanism that I don't understand how to take advantage of. And then on top of that, I get results that I can't argue why they're happening, you know? Oh, France is done doing things. Why is France done doing things? France isn't done. No. Turkey, you know, you can argue that Turkey had some effect on the end of the war. England, a lot less. But it was obvious. It was obvious, and it was all out there to see that 2 players passing would end this thing. So what the fuck does Austria want to do? Well, I guess quell unrest. That's probably the highest priority at this point. That leaves one person left, France, who, of course, will succeed in their war over here. And I need another one of these to put that down. And that, oh, now where did I put it? There. Is the end of that. France has succeeded in 2 wars. What is this? Shit, I didn't count this when I had the navies fight. Fuck it. For whatever it's worth. All right. That puts me to the peace and rebels phase. Do I want to deal with that? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm feeling kind of sick. I think I'll pause again. Awake at the sort of wrong side of the morning. I slept for a couple hours and then couldn't keep sleeping. Which, of course, you know, magically absolves me of all responsibility for skipping the day, right? I really actually have to do something today, but... all right, peace and rebel, remove casus belli and truces. There were a lot of truces out there. No casus belli because, well, oops, there's a truce I didn't see. Oh, that may have been out there longer. Nope, it's in the right. It belonged there. And no NPR invasions. The only NPR that's at war on its own are the Danes, and they're nowhere near, they can't connect to France. There should have been a naval battle there. The naval battle should have been stronger than it was. What would that have done? I don't know. It would have made, like, the French might not have even made the attack, so. So now we're on the rebel siege and move. This is the one place that I know that casus belli can be generated from. So I've got to be careful now because there may have been a time when one should have been generated. And the problem with that is, I believe it has to be placed. So you may have to give up a claim or a core area. I think only claims, but you may have to give up a claim somewhere on the board because you get a casus belli somewhere. Again, it doesn't feel right. Like, it doesn't feel to me, you know, like the partition of Poland, right? Because it was so big. Let's say the first partition happened. It doesn't feel like Poland would lose claim to all the territories that they lost in the first partition, or to some of them, because the second partition gave them, you know, new issues or something like that, or because a revolt gave them something. But you can kind of gloss over it and say, you know, yeah, but you're not really pursuing it anymore. You got bigger problems or newer problems. You don't have a choice in the matter of what you have to give up, right? Okay. I'll come back and report on what happened. We had 3. 1, this whole army moves into Greece to deal with Yanya. Never heard of it. Looks like Macedonia to me, but I think actually Macedonia is considered up here, so yeah, I don't know. The English lost their last remaining holding on the continent. They worked so hard. They fought a war with Spain. They captured 2 areas. Well, now they're Dutch areas. Sure, we denied Spain stuff, but that's not why we did it. Such is life, right? And for the Poles, this one. Now this one's interesting. We had this before. It's sitting there alone. It can't leave. Even if there was an area in unrest, it couldn't leave. The way I've interpreted the way the rules read, they're this series. Move all but one to an area with unrest that's alphabetical by land. Okay, there are none, so we're in good shape here. Then you'd handle a battle. If there were no eligible adjacent areas, remove 1 army. Well, there are no eligible adjacent areas. But some sort of unrest army would stay here if there was an area in unrest. It wouldn't be able to influence it, but it would stay there. That's how I read it. It feels a little weird to me. Not really from any kind of, reasoning about the situation. Just, wow. The way the rule is set up and worded feels odd. Now it's time to work on the pieces. What are we at war with? Well, we can do one really simple one. France has 2 wars, not one. France has 2 wars in play, and they win both of them. And they will take status quo and grab, well, this one is actually an annexation, but they will grab the 2 territories. That will solve the Guinean coast. I think they own 3 of them now. No, 2 of them. So I'll get $10 and 3 victory points for that. And I realize I fucked something up. I did not have a claim on anything Danish. It's the Danes, not the Dutch. Anything Danish when I declared war on them. I just marched in because it connects. That's a problem. France should be paying a penalty for that. So we have to find the declaration of war rules. What happens if I didn't have a claim? I would have gotten a -2 stability penalty. I would have been at -1, it goes down to -3, and I would lose these 2 cubes. It sucks. I'm paying the penalty because I don't think it's fair to give France just that bonus, although they probably, again, wouldn't have done it. I did this, and I put it over with the other French cards here, which we'll worry about a little later. I did not succeed in the border conflict. All right. Now we go back. We're still looking at peace here. And the order of peace, let's see, who else is at war? Those 2 we could handle really easily. I think the only other war in play is between Austria and Turkey. Neither is in the other's territory. This is going to be an enforced white peace, or an automatic. Add or remove truce war tokens where relevant. Okay. I don't understand the total victory to enforce being here. All terms are allowed, yeah, okay. But it's the automatic. This is a return to pre-war with no compensation being paid. Any PRs involved lose 1 each. Austria and Turkey each lose 1, and they fall into a truce with one another. I'm not sure it makes sense that they would be in a truce. This is basically a lapse of war. And what you're saying is, take a look at, I don't know how you want to consider, say, modern events. But take a look at Ukraine as an example, and we can look at others, where Russia seized Crimea, right? And there's low-grade fighting, but it doesn't feel like there's a war going on from 14 until, what, 21, 22, 22, I guess. What year is it? And you could make an argument that there was a continuing war in there, but you could also make the argument that that essentially the war devolved into a peace. I don't think that would be fair because Russia was occupying territory claimed by the other, and so no. Let's try to look more in this time period. There were certainly periods of 15 years or more, you know. No, 15 years is not safe, because if you're saying there was a 15 to 20 year peace, that could be a full turn, that could be a truce. There were periods where two countries were not at war and then entered into war again. I think you're going to see a lot of that revolving around things like the reign of Louis XIV and the Grand Alliance against him. And I'm using that term loosely. That probably only applied to one war, but there were like multiple wars which had peace treaties, some of which did nothing, some of which granted some stuff, and there was no truce between them. But you could say, well, you know, this game is so abstract that it's handling those multiple wars in a certain way or not. But what's happening here is just at some arbitrary moment, neither side has territory that belongs to the other, so it falls to a peace, right? It's a completely arbitrary moment. It's one managed by that little timer track. It's a weird sort of situation. Now, it feels arbitrary enough if you were doing this with the old EU with 5-year turns and whatever, and say, and the way that worked was, if you can't resolve your war, both countries take a stability loss. It's still at an arbitrary moment, but it's like, it's not forcing you into a, hey, nothing's happening here. However, that game does have a similar mechanism. And, you know, what it really should be is that there's a certain amount of time without any engagements, without anything going on, because really what happened is both sides were fighting, right? The Austrians would have moved in. It's not even like, you know, it's the fact that people still have cubes left and everything. They didn't wear each other out. The Austrians would have fought if everybody else's time hadn't passed more quickly, you know? Again, there's like this weird time warp thing going on in this game. And it really, really bugs me anytime I think about it. So, how do you play? You don't think about it, you play the game by as many of the rules as you can tolerate, I guess. I think that's the end of the peace phase then. Which gets me was anybody in the war? Huh. You know, the first time I think I did this, I flipped over some alliances and was preparing to give the Austrians or the Turks, I think it was the Austrians, because the Turks don't have any allies now, some extra troops. And it just didn't happen. It's fine. It doesn't have much effect. Any disputed successions? I don't believe so. Any occupied towns? Yes, because it includes rebels. So I got to count for each country. Time to rectify the cubes. I had like an extra cube on the Turks somewhere. I don't know what it's from. Nothing of theirs was conquered. So I don't know. Ignore that. Ignore that. Pretend it wasn't there. Spain lost 3 points for this, and England lost 1 for the revolution going on over there. Now, interregnum. Is anybody lacking a ruler? I think everybody's got a ruler right now. If they don't, they probably could have played one, and I would fix that. And now it's time to play with the religious dissent and flip over all the problematic things. This is going to be impactful. Come up to one of those annoying rules questions. Let me tell you what happened. Austria got hit in a number of places, but they have tolerance. Well, they got hit in 2 places. Here, where there's a revolutionary. Oh, here where there's a revolutionary. I can avoid both of those. I don't have any Protestant areas under my control, strangely enough, but there's another revolutionary here where the vassal switches over, and the only vassal I have left is Milan itself. So that is the one that gets fired off. I don't have any cubes or anything to spend there. Should be continuing to spend diplomacy, right? I've got cubes left. Of course, I didn't have enough actions. Couldn't do, you know, having a good king doesn't help you if everybody else has shit kings, right? Somehow, I don't know. Like, not really shit. It's like, if you are this outstanding ruler, you can't use all your cubes as efficiently as you would think you could. You might be able to do something like a massive unrest cleanse or something like that. There are things you can use that use a lot of cubes at once. So there are options available to you. But for the most part, each action is like 1 cube, and you're not as dynamic as you seem like you are. But if there are a couple of other dynamic rulers out there who are up at your level, well, then you're not just a little better than everyone else. You know, you're a little better than the best of the people. The worst people just suck. Except for the fact that they can roll back time completely and say, well, Ali Oxenfree, I passed. Again, there's some of the core game mechanisms to this that just, they defy any ability for me to even reason about effectively. Like, I can't come up with an answer with them. All right. But what is the question? The question is, I'm in an area here where there are 2 different provinces, or 2 different areas, both of which are Muslim, but they're controlled by 1 Muslim counter. Now, reading this strictly, it's a religion other than state religion in any of their areas must add to that. And I think that's fine. I think this just says these are 2 separate areas that share the same religion. So this is going to count as 2 different areas in which I have provinces. I'm not going to look it up. Again, I've made enough mistakes. If I'm missing something here, I don't give a shit anymore. Turkey's cost as a revolutionary nationalist society is horrible, right? They ended up with 7 provinces, or 7 areas that are problematic, and had to turn 5 of their things over. So you see boom, 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 boom. Plus, there's a revolt that's going to happen over here. Can't do a damn thing about it anymore. In fact, oh, no, those just moved in. Okay. There's a threat that next turn it'll take my place. Got to keep going with other countries. Oh, look, the French have a problem. How'd that happen? Shit. Oh, no. The French have a big problem. Uh-oh. The French revolutionary area is spread. Notably, this vassal I had a cube for. Likewise, I had a cube over here in Algiers, which doesn't work. Doesn't work. Let me see how this is worded. Players who have vassals in any areas with a religion other than the state religion must, in one affected area, either remove a cube. Yeah. So I do not have a cube there, and I don't have any other vassals. Well, I have this one. I could lose this instead. I'd rather lose Tripolitania, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to switch those two because I have this control of the Barbary Coast that I'm working on. I'm just one short, man. I got 5 of the 6. Of course, this would all go at once, probably. Buck, I forgot something with the English. Let me just hit the Spaniards. So the Spaniards are having problems here, here, and I think there was a third one up there, plus the Swiss. Yeah, but they're okay there. Spain and Turkey are both happy with the fact that there's a revolutionary fervor there, even though Naples, like the southern Italy, is like divided between Turkish and Spanish adherents. They're both okay with it. You'd think the nationalism wouldn't work quite that way. And that's what I take the revolutionary as. It kind of doesn't make sense, but it does kind of fit the French goal. So if you think about the Napoleonic Wars, France instilled a revolutionary fervor, say, in the Batavian Republic, which is the Netherlands and I think part of the Belgian territory, part of Flanders. Well, the Walloon area, they probably claimed Flanders itself. They instilled it in places like Switzerland, which was already somewhat infected. They instilled it in Italy, especially North Italy, in areas of Germany. Technically, those would all be vassal states, I think, because France did not absorb them and claim they were part of France. So I'm not quite sure, what, like, if I match the revolutionary fervor to nationalism, which is what it seems to be, it almost seems like you wouldn't have possessions anymore. On the other hand, you could make definite arguments that France really kind of controlled these things, doing things like putting their own, marshals in charge of these countries and whatnot. You could also argue it doesn't make a damn bit of sense in any sense of the game, because that period is less than a turn, right? The period of the Napoleonic Wars, where this sort of happened, where areas were really nationalistic. First of all, I think they crop up too early, and secondly, they seem to have too much effect long term, like whatever. But that's a different issue. I'm like looking, so maybe I'm looking at something else, but it just doesn't make sense to me. I can't figure something other than nationalism that it is. And it doesn't make sense to me that these areas are okay with Spain owning them, because Spain is a nationalistic country and they're nationalistic, right? And the same thing with this. And it especially seems weird when the underlying religion for Spain is counter-reform Catholicism, and the underlying religion for these areas would be Muslim. I can accept that nationalism trumps the religion, but it's nationalism, man. It doesn't allow you to be possessions. So that seems just totally like a crock when you start looking at it. And there's just so much in this game that if you start looking at it, feels all wrong. But again, the actual period under which that kind of nationalistic movement was happening would be the last turn of the game only. Maybe you could argue there were some bents towards it in countries to begin with, and that's how France ended up becoming a revolutionary nation. Was, I don't know. Yeah, it's just beyond me to try to figure out what the hell's going on here. But, and here's another thing. You can convert things that don't really affect you much. So for example, here, let's say I needed a Catholic chip somewhere. I could take that from here and turn the underlying religion from Catholic back to Muslim. just as a, that could be the counter that I'm stealing off the board, right? It doesn't have to be one that's having an effect. So if I want to keep Catholicism strong, maybe that would work. I don't know. I don't know why I would want to do that if I was revolutionary. Where the hell am I? On the English? Well, the English lost like all the territory that they have issues with, haven't they? Except that they have the Portuguese, who I'm pretty sure are not Protestants. Okay, so there goes Fez joining the nationalist revolution. I think that has gone all the way around. And now we do this little mechanical thing where everybody gets additional unrest because everybody's got a -3 stability, except, no, Poland's strong. Poland's got a -1. Turkey has a -2, but that still is enough to give them an unrest. And you know what you see is even countries that kind of had their unrest under control, like Austria, well, they're getting more again because there's just not enough fat. Like I said, it takes all your effort in this game to like deal with the political and religious unrest that occurs and keep your stability up and everything. If you do anything on the board, if you try to colonize, if you try to fight wars, if you don't have a good ruler, you're probably going to devolve into a collapsing state. Now, Austria is not in the position of being a collapsing state, I would say. But you can see where it's already kind of happening, right? I spent a lot. That's why I couldn't win the war, because I spent my cubes and my time over there to prevent the country from collapsing. And again, it's setting up to be in trouble for next turn. I'm going to have to spend a lot, even if I want to go to war or I wanted to do something else. And then there's, of course, the issue of religious problems, which tolerance helps. But if you're big, you're going to fall apart. I feel like, and maybe this is, so here's the thing. If you fight a war and you're not able to maintain your perfection, and the war causes you problems, and then you will be a collapsing state like Spain is, maybe like France is, right? If you don't, basically, if you fight a war, because you won't have the ability to react to the events and such not that are just going to sweep over you. And you can make the argument that, yeah, in 15, 20 years, there should be these waves of unrest happening. Yeah, but they should be, it should be more possible to quell them. See, here's the problem. Here's the problem. You spend a cube and some unrest goes away. It's not like I wish there were more cubes and a roll for it or something, right? Now, you've got the random chance already. You've got the unrest dice, right? These suckers, which we're just about to roll. You've got these things. You could just get lucky with them, right? There's only one really bad result on each die. And then a bunch that just trim your fat, right? Your next turn's going to suck worse. Of course, next turn's going to suck worse means that you're still going down the drain. It's just a different kind of drain you're going down. I mean, you're choosing the sink or the tub rather than getting flushed down the toilet. But in the end, you end up in the sewer either way. It's just, it might take a little longer for the water to go down the sink drain. Austria ends up okay. Their tolerance saves them from this. This roll didn't hurt them much. I think they lost a cube. Poland not in such good position, and the countermix not in such good position. They're almost bankrupted by what happened. And a bankruptcy would have been very painful. That would, the one advantage I have is I have this little bit of, my people are only just miserable. They're not dying of the plague miserable, which to me is the -3. The -3 is just, that's French Revolution or just before the Revolution. That's horrible. Well, that's what almost all of Europe is, okay? It is as bad as it gets everywhere except Poland, that's at -1, and Turkey, that's at -2. Ouch. By the way, you never see this kind of thing. You might see a country hit this kind of stability problem. You never see this in the original EU, where every country is just in the dump. And I don't remember with the computer game. So here's the thing with the computer game. You're focused on your country so much that you're like, you might not notice if all of Europe went into unrest, right? Due to religious issues or whatever. But the religious issues just keep persisting and they're not getting better, right? Religious and political unrest is everywhere and it's horrible. And again, some of it, like, I look at some of it and I'm like, well, look, Spain is in a horrible situation. They've got revolting territories. They're in unrest with a lot of their cities. They're about ready to collapse. Yeah, but let's look at, on top of that, at the number of countries that are at -3 stability. And again, it's a matter of not having the cubes, not having the time, whatever. Even after I've started spending heavily on getting as many advisors as I can. My feeling is the kind of unrest that should be happening normally is kind of what Austria is facing, right? But they shouldn't be at -3 stability, whatever that means. When I picture -3 stability, I think it should be like this, You should be in that kind of condition. That's kind of my problem. The original EU has that as well, where you have a stability track and you have, not an unrest track, you have a rebellion. Well, I don't know what the hell it's called. You have revolts, right? Revolts show up and they're kind of like the unrest and they can create armies which feel, I guess, kind of like these things. And when the unrest gets bad enough, it does turn into something kind of like this, which is a double plus unrest. And the game uses some weird things where each counter has a minus and a plus on it. And for unrest, if you have unrest usually shows up as a minus. And you can usually cope with that. If it's kind of widespread with a lot of minuses around, or with some pluses showing up and everything, you're getting in danger. Once you get up to 2+, they control it and they start building armies. It's just a different mechanism in that game, but it kind of correlates. And you're more likely to get unrests and such not. You get a modifier to the table based on your stability. Here, you get one additional unrest somewhere based on your stability issue, which means the stability is not as big an impact. Like if you're at -3 stability in that original game, you're going to start seeing unrests everywhere, which is perhaps, some of what I'm thinking, right? Like maybe that -3 unrest isn't so terrible. It really, you're a little low on income. You're going to start seeing some unrest show up, not because of religious things or events, and your government's not going to be as effective. That doesn't sound all that horrible, right? But it does add into the problems you will face the next turn. The amount of, if you had any fat, that's getting cut away, right? Money, $2 of money doesn't mean shit, right? A huge country that's in unrest doesn't even notice that $2 penalty. A tiny country that's got a little bit of unrest going on would suffer. It really should be like a percentage of your income, and it is in the original. It's one of the effects of unrest, I believe. The unrest marker showing up, again, it's not proportional to the size of your country, right? However, the bigger your country, the more unrest you're likely to get from religious differentials. So you could argue that's not that big a deal. A cube being taken away is exactly the same for everyone. There's no proportionality to that, right? I mean, there is, if you have a great ruler, losing a cube might not be a big deal, but it has nothing to do with the size of your country. You know, the bigger your country, you might have more problems that you need more cubes for, but it's, you know, it's still a cost that feels equivalent throughout both of them. And so there's a differentiation between what the impacts of the stability losses or gains. Of course, getting high stability is really, really hard. It's so expensive in cubes. Nobody really pushed it. I did have people get up to +2 stability through events, through buying it, you know, through maybe cards that allow it, but it's really hard to manage. It's really hard. It's basically, you know, you have to make your administrative effort for that, for a good leader to get a bump up in it. And there are often so many other things that are more important, like changing the religion of the area of your areas so that they don't just all rise up against you. Mixed results for the Turks. Almost, even closer to bankruptcy. No money left. Five things. If I took another loss of cubes, money, cubes or money, I would have gone into bankruptcy. I did have one reroll left because I rerolled once on this and it got another flag. That has revolted. That's kind of the bad thing. I lost my vassal here in Adadne, and I guess we just keep going. I got lucky, I guess. A bunch of troop retirements. I probably can't fight wars. Almost certainly don't need too big an army, even going against Austria. I don't know. Austria's big. Look at that army. Jesus. But they don't have it built, right? They have 2 cannons down in Dalmatia. But yeah, they have a lot of pieces between the empire and whatnot. And then they have additional if I do fight them, which is why I didn't want to go into Savoy. Spain, however, Spain going deep into debt. Lost the Baleares. It rejoined Aragon, as has Sicily. However, I got Lisbon back. Oh, and I lost the last of the Dutch-owned, Dutch-claimed territories that I had. France still has this vassal here in Luxembourg that the Dutch are claiming. Whatever. And these are actually the Dutch, not the Danes. England is last. Do they have any unrest? If they do, I just roll. They have one there. I think that's it. Unless I'm hiding one under a ship. I know somebody was, and I also think that I counted, I rolled for it. Maybe. Who knows? Oh, why did I do Madrid? I could have done Murcia. Oops. Okay, the English recover Fez. So that gets me to the income and upkeep, and there is no way I'm in condition to do that right now. These bookkeeping phases are big, you know, bigger than a normal round around the table. Honestly, that feels right. I mean, to me, in the old EU, all the bookkeeping, it would take me like once I'm in the flow of it, it takes me like a half hour a country to do it. And then when I get to the military movement and the fighting and everything, so little actually happens. I come up, I move a few pieces, move around on the boards. Even though that game has more of a focus on the military and does a lot more detail of it, because it doesn't jumble it in with everything else. But the problem is that everything else is jumbled in. So these kind of interphase type things, it feels like to me, you know, them taking a long time doesn't bother me, but I feel like the rest of the turn should be relatively simple and easy outside of that. Instead of that though, this feels like playing a CDG. All that kind of interactive bullshit is what I want to say. But no, the interactive play puts a really heavy burden on the players, right? Now, in solo play, it's really, really bad because I'm changing hats constantly and thinking the whole world situation with each player. But I argue that it is also a heavier burden on players in opposed play. It certainly is for me. When I'm sitting at the table and I have to make a key decision every time it comes around to me, a really key decision, that's very different from I make all my key decisions at once in sort of an economic phase and then play out the military where, there's not a lot that I'm doing, right? I know I probably have 3 or 4 stacks that I'm interested in at the maximum, right? That's looking at a country like Spain during the exploration period with a war in Italy against France. That kind of the maximal type of period of the game. Very late in the game, there may be wars, worldwide wars instead. But yeah, basically I've got a stack or two, I've got maybe 2 explorers out as Spain. Nobody else is going to have that many on the board. Doing some stuff. Maybe instead of that I'm attacking Mexico or something like that. and I have somebody doing exploration. And then I have like 1 or 2 armies that are fighting the actual war. There's 1 or 2 places on the board where I've actually got troops that are facing the enemy. Now, and if they're facing the enemy, I'm only moving 1 of them each turn. Each of my player turns within that set of rounds of actions. There's also like probably about 6 to 7 action rounds total. It feels like about the right amount of times I'm going around the board, but I'm making these huge decisions that feel almost as big as doing the entire economic phase every time I go around the board. And that's always been my problem with the CDGs, is that I have all these things I want to do. I have this limited amount of points in my hand, and I don't get to do them all at once. I don't get to allocate, okay, this is going to cost me 2, this is going to cost me this is going to cost me that, and I just do it. I pick one, and then the situation changes and I have to reevaluate each time. Now, I understand why that's appealing to people, right? The idea of, yeah, I'm making important decisions every time I do something. I hear that's the kind of thing the Eurogamer loves, right? How many impactful decisions do I make in the game? I shouldn't just be making 1 or 2 big decisions and moving on. I stand absolutely in the opposite position, right? I should make my big strategic choices, and the rest are little tactical decisions to implement those strategic choices. That's just how I feel. It's what I'm used to, it's what I like, right? Not maybe to the extent of Monopoly, where most of my turns I'm on autopilot, right? A complete autopilot. There's nothing I really have to do. And then I have to, the only real decisions that I have to make in the game are, in general, you buy almost everything. The only real decisions you're making are, hey, here's a deal. And it's what I call the big deal philosophy in Monopoly. It's like the game rests on like a single bargaining position and everything. And all the rest of it just plays it out. Now, there's something I like about that. But I totally see where that's way too far in the other direction. But I find it emotionally and intellectually just exhausting and challenging to have to face these major decisions rather than not being on autopilot, but being able to focus in on implementing the big decisions that I've already made. Did I go to war with Russia? Okay, that's fine. Now that I've chosen that, it shouldn't be too hard. I've got my troops built. I've got, my army. It's just a matter of how do I manipulate them in the most effective way, looking in on a little tiny area of the board. Not, well, I've invaded Russia. Should I be supporting my troops? Or should I do a merchant because I'm running out of money for those troops? Or should I, that just feels so wrong to me in so many ways. And I can't really explain the why and why not. And I also don't feel like the computer game really does that. I feel like in the computer game, at least the way I play it, because I play solo, I pause the game occasionally, quite often. And I look around and I say, okay, what do I need to build up? What infrastructure do I need? Do I need an army because I'm going to be fighting a war soon? Stuff like that. I make all those decisions. I send my troops out. They go marching. Then I turn it on and I let it run for a while. And it's almost like, it's almost not like a real-time strategy for me. Because I'm just waiting for that moment then when the troops engage. Then I zoom in and maybe I look at the battle. Maybe I miss it and get a report back or whatever. But I'm focusing on one thing at a time. If I'm focusing on the economy of my country, I'm not really worried about the maneuvers of my armies. And I'm looking thing by thing, just as I would with the spreadsheet there, at each aspect that I want to cope with in my country, and then I go back. Now, if this was, I would never play it as an RTS, right? I hated the fact that it was an RTS when it came out. It was the one thing that I almost didn't buy it because of that, and then I got it on sale, and I'm like, okay, fine. I love the game so much, the original, and I want to give this a shot. And yes, I do enjoy playing it. It's in the same way I enjoy playing my baseball mogul. I make my choices and then I let it run. And maybe I step in and stop it and do something because there's a disaster that I start seeing, coming. And maybe I can do something, raise some troops or something to fix that issue where I have to switch gears. But I'm worried about one thing at a time still. Go to a historical context, even Philip II, who drove himself mad micromanaging his empire, right? He wasn't, worried about, oh, geez, man, I want to expand merchants here, so I'm going to go out and try to convince merchants to go there, right? Yes, he had to sign papers that granted monopolies or whatever, that granted various things, in addition to, arranging for the major taxes and everything. But it's almost like by trying to mix it all together, they're trying to give you that same sort of overwhelming experience that would drive anybody batty, right? And I don't mind CDGs on very lightweight games, and I don't mind my Euros to be very light. I don't mind Euros that are very lightweight, right? Euro thinking works okay on lightweight games. But I don't mind my CDGs to be kind of lightweight. Here I Stand is fun. Sword of Rome is fun, right? You get to Virgin Queen, and I've got too many damn conflicting things to balance, to work out. And honestly, I have to say the same with this Time of Wars. I felt like it exceeded the complexity that's acceptable for a CDG. And I feel like the way this works, it's very similar with the very pulsing, and I can do one of anything in it. What I call the Eurification. That works okay with really, really simple games. What else might it work okay with? I kind of feel like that CDG type thinking works okay with strictly military operations, where I'm looking like at something like Empire of the Sun, or maybe the Axis Empires. I know I have my problems with that, where I have too many conflicting desires to balance. It's hard for me to say, because I can't really point to a purely military CDG where I'm happy, except for very lightweight ones, right? You know, I mean, look, if you make it light enough, I can live with it. But if you give me too many choices with too much complexity, like I wouldn't want to deal with OCS, right, as a CDG. I wouldn't want to be having to allocate my supplies in that sort of off-the-cuff sort of manner. I want to be able to proportion them and stick to that proportioning and watch them move, you know, and move my little trucks, you know. I want to be able to rest, let my mind rest for a while after I come up with my grand plan. So entering into the income collection, I start collecting the cash. Wow, look at all that money Austria got. Impressive. I don't think they've done that before. Poland in a little bit more trouble cash-wise. But I realized as I did it, wait a minute, there was something I had to look up. Over here, player who has uncontested, players with absolute monarchy get this. Yeah, I screwed up again and I didn't notice these. So I got to look at these. So at the start of phase 3, who was at peace at the beginning of this turn who has the constitutional monarchy? France was not at peace. They had to create their peace here. But Poland was. So they got one of these, but this is at the start of phase 3, which is the peace and rebels phase. I had cubes. So that's going to actually just translate, I think, into $2. I think I had to pay money for missing cubes there. Now let's look at the others. Revolutionary regime. At the start of phase 3, lose one if you're not at war. Spain was not at war. They would have lost one. They would lose cubes for that. I don't know. I don't know if they had any. That would translate into maybe them losing a couple of bucks or something, but I'm not going to charge them. But it's really hard because unlike here where they tell you, here they don't tell you if you have a revolutionary regime, deal with this. During phase 4, though, we're going to gain 2 military extra for Spain and Turkey, just period the end, which is pretty potent. That's going to be an extra cube run that I, and didn't realize this. Fine print down here. Research is modified by your current stability. So you can't, people have been getting it for free, I think. But if you wanted to research it and somebody had, where they were forced to research it or else their stability would drop by 4 or something, and the stability dropped, it actually would have been cheaper. They didn't have the cubes anyway. But again, you know, me not noticing little stuff, nobody's got the absolute monarchy, and that's fine because enforcing a peace, you'd have to win, right? It's not through negotiation and it's not through, you could declare yourself a winner through negotiation, like if the pair agrees who won the war. So I think that would count as an enforced, although I don't know, because it says has to enforce as opposed to, anyway. Anyhow, we caught up with those. Another mistake ready to happen again, even though I should know better by now, right? But it's just so hard to remember, especially with these things, this tableau of cards over here with all these little chits on it. It's not easy. Sometimes I wish I had a rolling whiteboard because I could put lots of information up on it. Some weird things kind of happen, again, having to do with proportionality as I'm thinking about it. If you're particularly low on cubes, things like the Papal Curia or the Imperial track are a much bigger deal than if you have a rich store of cubes due to advisors or whatever, you know. So there are times when these can be a big bonus. Normally, I mean, they're a bonus no matter what, right? You know, I'm getting 2 cubes from this, you would get 1 from this. It's just nice. A lot of money left over on France. They didn't actually officially pass, they took a turn. I checked my cards, I'm good on those. I didn't have an advisor I could play, but I paid off one of my loans, remembering that it's the National Bank, so it cost me 9 to pay back. A couple of players, and by the way, I dropped those military cubes early instead of doing it in consolidated because I knew I wouldn't remember them otherwise. But Spain's army is diminishing. The size of their realm, they're losing the Netherlands, they're losing vassal states, they're just shrinking. So they lost, plus they've got revolts all over the place. So they lost some of their manpower and they're falling down, but I fucked up. I fucked up. These will be tired guys, but they're from the +1 when I did those bonus add to your manpower. I don't remember what the fuck that was off of. Was that off of an event card or was it off of one of these things? I don't know. There seemed like there were a lot of them early on and they haven't been happening since. The Turks got some, the Spanish got some, and then they both went revolutionary. There may be something there. The English are piss poor again. Not quite sure why. Their realm looks like it's in better shape than it's been in a while, but they're only pulling $5. Big part of it, 2 $4 advisors. England has a peculiar situation. They do not have a big realm. And yeah, they could, you know, urbanize a little better. There's no question of that. But their realm is so small that they don't, without a big vassal or something like that available, they just don't produce a hell of a lot of cash. And we've remarked on this before. So out of all the countries, they kind of can afford these the least out of the countries that are out there. I mean, Spain, even weak little Spain, you know, it's not all of Spain, but it's got holdings elsewhere still. It is bringing in an income compared to some of these others. And obviously, you know, the bigger realms, France, Austria, Poland, Turkey, they're hauling in money even though they're in chaos. I don't remember either the computer game or the board game because money usually isn't a problem for anyone by this point in the game. It is early in the game in the board game. In the computer game, I know that France gets ridiculous amounts of cash. And, you know, it sort of snowballs because cash allows you to do more things. You have limitations, I think, on timers in the computer game, and you have limitations in the board game as to how many of certain actions you can do. So you can only do X number of colonization, X number of merchant placements, etc. that just are based on your realm, you know. I think it's based more on ideas in the computer game at this point as to what things you can do, etc. Obviously, neither one translates particularly to this. The cubes are trying to do some of that. There isn't a lot left. Oh, and I shifted first player. That's going to be Poland. End of age routine. No, we're here. Discard down to 5 cards. Turkey was the only one who had too many, and then we don't have an end of age routine. I did this. Did I not? Yeah, I ran through that and did that. Which means we're at that stage where I give you that final hint of what the next board is going to look like. And I feel like crap, man. This is the end round, because we can't say player turn, we can't say turn, and we can't say he or she. That's what I learned from this game. So let's take a look. Constitution of Cadiz. This gives me Fernando VII. It's obviously a Spanish event, who kind of sucks. Restore absolutism. Castile, Spain gains an admin and a military and must add unrest to all their large cities on the main map. Unfortunately, I've grown quite a bit, so that's kind of a bad choice. I may not get to make it. Triumph of liberalism. Castile, Spain rejects Fernando and must disband and exhaust all land units on distant continents. Ooh. They may pay 3 peace, 3 diplomacy, to research constitutional monarchy. Spain's had an interesting path in this game, haven't they? The Metternich system. Okay, so this is post-Napoleonic War. Form Holy Alliance, well, maybe not. Gives you Francis II, who showed up during the wars. Form Holy Alliance. Austria may pay 1 dip to offer an alliance to up to 2 Christian opponent realms. Is it 1 for both of them or 1 each? I'm saying it's 1 for both of them. In each case, if accepted, that's part of a different sentence, both parties of the alliance gain a stability and you gain, you being the person who plays the card, a dip. Crush liberalism. Austria gains 4 unrest, researches absolute monarchy for free, and may pay 1 military to remove 2 rebel ideology from their realm. That could be interesting. Metternich, a lot of diplomacy, obviously. Nothing else of great value. Okay, the rights of man. Now this sounds more like revolutionary stuff. But remember, this deck, this quarter deck, and the last quarter deck were formed of the same cards. So the order of these could be completely different. You know what I'm not seeing? It's got to be in the remaining cards, is the thing that triggers the Napoleonic Wars. Again, that could have shown up last time. The rights of man. You gain a prestige and may research the tolerance idea for 3 admin. All other players may pay 3 admin and a diplomacy to research it too. Yeah, this would be great early in the game. Now, by the time it takes effect, yeah, it'll affect your end game victory points, but players with the revolutionary regime idea get a further discount of 1. Nice. All players who now have the tolerance idea may then remove 2 unrest from their realm. Doubly nice. All players with absolute monarchy lose a stability and gain 3 unrest. Ooh. Plus, lots and lots of nastiness and killing off triangles. I don't know. Triangle was my best friend when I was young. He was an imaginary dog. Actually, he was my only friend when I was that age. That may explain some things. I got one here who'd age. That's about it. So I'm not seeing much effect from that death card unless there's another one just like it, and I don't think that ever happens unless I fuck up with the decks. We got a lot of shit going on here. Vassals breaking ties, rebellion, revolution spreading, rebellions roll. You know, it's one of them nasty cards. This is one that I think would be really appealing to somebody who already has toleration or tolerance, or who, you know, is willing to pay for it. But for the most part, it looks really good for somebody who has it. They get a prestige, and then they will have it, so they get this advantage on their side. So if they have any unrest or something, that's good. If anybody had absolute monarchy, or if Spain swaps out their revolution for it, I guess that would be in effect. So that is the end of this video. We'll send it up. I'm sure it's long like they all are nowadays. I wonder if this battery is charged. And like I said, I'm feeling like shit. And I'm going to have to come and do the story so far video.